All right, what up, everyone? Do a little sound check real quick. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
What up, everyone?
All right, cool, it works. All right, happy Tuesday, y'all. All right, this is another hearing that happened recently that I've been wanting to watch. This is Todd Blanche pulls up to this appropriations committee here. So let's check this out. All right, here we go.
Subcommittee will be in order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare a recess at any time. I'll begin by recognizing myself for an opening statement. I want to welcome our witness, the Honorable Todd Blanche, Acting Attorney General of the United States, to testify before our subcommittee today. Last month, the fiscal year 2027 Commerce, Justice, Science, and Related Agencies bill cleared the full House Appropriations Committee. And the Attorney General's leadership of the Department of Justice comes at a crossroads. On the one hand, the subcommittee recognizes the strides taken by the department to make communities safe again across the United States and to address the misguided priorities of the previous administration. On the other hand, the subcommittee recognizes areas for improvement, such as communicating with the subcommittee and the lack of testimony ahead of our bill moving forward. Additional areas of concern deal with getting appropriated dollars out the door and making progress with already approved projects. From the proposed federal prison in Lesser County, Kentucky, in my district, that has been stalled to the delay of several grant programs, including the Prescription Drug Monitoring Program, which I worked to start in response to the opioid crisis. And that's vital for many communities like mine. It's critical for this department to move with speed and meet congressional intent. Finally, to date, we're still waiting on responses to questions for the record from 2 fiscal 26 department hearings. While I would have preferred to start the fiscal 27-year cycle differently, by having this conversation prior to last month's markup, this hearing is hopefully the start of productive dialogue between the subcommittee.
All right, yeah, this looks like it's going to be a good hearing. A bunch of politicians are going to grill. They're going to grill Todd Blanche. I haven't seen this yet. I've seen some clips. This happened recently, like June 3rd, so this is pretty fresh still. So I'm going to watch it in its entirety, so feel free to join in. It's a couple hours long. But check it out. I got my snacks. Here, I'll show you guys what I got. I went to 7-Eleven. And got provisions just for this hearing. I got some pretzels. What else do we got? We got some Famous Amos cookies. We got a Lunchable. See, we got some cigarettes. some mandarin oranges. Got some tuna. Little tuna snack. Got a salad. What else did I get? Got some honey roasted peanuts. Got a green tea, Arizona tea. Huh. I got some hard-boiled eggs. Some milk. Some Sour Patch Kids. Representing all the food groups over here. RFK Jr. would be proud. Some more Lunchables. And some Mexican candy. We got some Mexican candy. What else did we get? Oh, and we got some hippie lettuce. All right, so I'm about to make a coffee. So we got all the provisions needed for this hearing here. So feel free to join in and share your opinions. All right, here we go.
And the department under your leadership. I look forward to hearing your priorities and vision for the department and responses to our questions regarding the recent announcements. Your testimony will still be valuable to the committee as the fiscal year 27 appropriations process continues. Over the past year, the Department of Justice has made great strides in combating drug cartels and curbing the flow of illicit drugs, including fentanyl. The Drug Enforcement Administration and Department of Justice have taken down some of the most notorious cartel bosses, such as El Mayo, the founder of the Sinaloa cartel, and Nicolas Maduro, the leader of the cartel of the Suns and former president of Venezuela. While these are significant wins, the department must continue this fight to eradicate the flow of illicit drugs and bring more cartel leaders to justice. While issues such as illegal immigration have been addressed head-on, other issues have emerged over the past year. I applaud the department's efforts to tackle emerging issues, such as fraud, that pits the underworld against American and their hard-earned taxpayer dollars. And we look forward to hearing more about the department's plans to continue these efforts. I also look forward to hearing about the Department of efforts in supporting state, local, and tribal law enforcement agencies. Over the past year, from Washington to Memphis, Tennessee, the Department of Justice has aided local law enforcement agencies in surge operations to combat violent crime. American streets are safer now because of the actions of this department and the Trump administration. Joe Blanche, I stand ready to support you in your efforts to ensure that the American public lives in a society that is free from crime and abuse. I look forward to hearing more from you today regarding areas of progress, areas of need, and plans, and to continue the department's momentum. While the fiscal 27 appropriations cycle has already commenced, there are critically important funding decisions ahead of us. And I hope we gain a better sense of your priorities today so that we can make the best decisions on behalf of the American people. Before I turn to Mrs. Meng for opening remarks, on behalf of this subcommittee, I would like to send well wishes for a quick and healthy recovery to former Attorney General Bondi. Let me now recognize the ranking member of this subcommittee, Mrs. Meng, for any remarks that she cares to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome Acting Attorney General Blanche, and thank you everyone for your patience as we finished up the prior hearing with Secretary Rubio. Tens of thousands of public servants at the Department of Justice work very hard to protect public safety and try their best to uphold the rule of law. However, the leadership of the department...
Hey, what's up? What's up, Gabriel? Hey, that's funny that you made that comment. Hey, hope you're having a good Tuesday. But I was thinking the same thing. That chairman guy with the opening statement, that he's most likely a MAGA Republican because he makes no sense at all. But man, that guy was like the most boring dude of all time right there. Good Lord. Oh man, that guy's horrible. That guy was horrible. But it looks like this lady's gonna come through with some facts right here. So let's see what she has to say.
It's greatly damaged it over the past 16 months. Hardworking Americans continue to struggle with higher and higher costs of gas, groceries, and other necessities. Yet the Trump administration is doing nothing to help them. President Trump himself has said that he doesn't, quote, think about Americans' personal financial situation. At the same time, a growing number of Trump administration officials and their family members are enriching themselves in the millions of dollars by...
All right, yeah, this lady knows what's up. She's actually speaking some truth and some facts over here. Yeah, and that's exactly what Trump said. He doesn't care about our financial situations.
Personal business deals directly connected to their official government decisions. Working and middle-class Americans are paying their taxes, but the acting attorney general signed an order 2 weeks ago directing the IRS to permanently avoid auditing past tax returns of the Trump family. Members of the Trump family are now off the hook for at least $100 million in taxes. On top of that, the Trump administration and the Justice Department are actively working to hand $1.8 billion in taxpayer dollars over to insurrectionists and other violent felons, hundreds of whom assaulted police officers here in the Capitol. One of the insurrectionists, Jared Wise, openly encouraged fellow rioters to attack and to kill police officers. He was hired last year by the Trump administration as a senior advisor and counselor at the Justice Department. There have been many other outrages over the past 16 months. Under this department's leadership and following an interview by then Deputy Attorney General Blanche, Jeffrey Epstein's closest associate, the convicted child sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, was moved to a cushy minimum security prison and was given special treatment and unique privileges. Hundreds of experienced career agents, investigators, and prosecutors have been fired or forced out of DOJ as part of a campaign of political retribution by the Trump administration. Just days before the launch of U.S. military strikes in Iran this year, at least 10 FBI counterintelligence agents and support staff, including those specializing in the Middle East and Iran, were fired in retaliation for work they had been ordered to do several years ago in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. As the New York Times reported in March, after a year of continuous firings, resignations, and other disruptions to work, elite counterterrorism and counterintelligence units at the Justice Department have been stretched thin and left short-staffed. But the threats to our country are growing. As part of their retribution campaign, the Trump administration and DOJ have also deliberately targeted and investigated numerous current and former public officials for criminal prosecution on extremely flimsy grounds, if any. DOJ has also trampled on the First Amendment by targeting journalists engaged in investigative reporting, including an FBI criminal probe of a reporter from The Atlantic magazine after its recent reporting about the FBI director's dereliction of his duties. Multiple news outlets have also reported on the administration's corrupt practice of receiving pay for pardons or clemency for millionaire and billionaire criminals. For example, we know that
Hey, what's up? What's up, Shauna Dawn? What's up, Station Russ? Yeah, you got that right. Yeah, his whole inner circle, they're just all a bunch of corrupt weirdos.
Founder of Binance.
Hey, what up, everybody? Hope you're all having a good Wednesday morning now. I'm in Los Angeles, so it's officially Wednesday now, June 10th, 2026. This hearing happened on June 2nd, so it's pretty fresh. I haven't seen it yet, so I figure I'm going to dive in and watch the whole thing. I got my snacks, I got my smoke, I got my coffee. So we're going to have a YouTubeville watch party for forever. Who so desires to join in and partake and share your thoughts and interact with YouTubeville. So feel free to comment. Please hit the like button. Thank you for tapping in. Appreciate everyone. Hope you're all doing well. So this is the beginning of the hearing. It's about it's a couple hours long, so we're in it for the long ride. Definitely going to watch this till the end.
October, after the company took actions that enriched the Trump family by hundreds of millions of dollars. In December, President Trump pardoned the former president of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez, who had been sentenced to 45 years in prison for allowing drug traffickers to export more than 400 tons of cocaine into the U.S. Not only was he pardoned, but the Bureau of Prisons helped relocate him from a federal prison in West Virginia to the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City after his release. All of this has happened in full public view, and the Trump administration has simultaneously gutted the DOJ's Public Integrity Section and shut down the Public Corruption Squad of the FBI Washington Field Office. There's more. Over the past 16 months, the DOJ's highly respected Civil Rights Division has been gutted. The FBI has stopped using a national database that tracks hate crime cases.
Oh man, there could be like it could be like a 10-part docuseries. And each episode would be like 10 hours long of all Trump's corruption and scandals.
And DOJ is proposing to eliminate the 3 grant programs aimed at fighting and preventing hate crimes, while hate crimes are at a record high. The administration also wants to eliminate the Community Relations Service, which was created by the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to prevent and resolve conflicts in American communities. At the same time, DOJ is seizing state voting records and has sued more than 30 states to access their voter information. Nearly all of the roughly 30 career lawyers in the voting section of the Civil Rights Division are gone. Last month, Acting Attorney General Blanche stated that he sees no problem with deploying ICE officers to polling places, even though 18 U.S. Code Section 592 prohibits sending armed personnel to polling places. And equally as egregious, the Justice Department has taken steps to allow criminals to own guns and continues to illegally restore the gun possession rights of convicted felons and domestic abusers. These actions and much more prove that since the start of this Trump administration, the Justice Department has failed the American people. I look forward to the discussions of these critically important issues today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Chair now recognizes the ranking member of the House Appropriations Committee, Ms. Nalarro, for any remarks she may wish to make.
Thank you very much, Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Meng.
Hey, what's up, Captain Homer? Hey, good to hear from you. Hope you're doing well. What's up, G-Man? Yeah, every single thing that comes out of these MAGA politicians' mouths is nothing but lies. But that lady that just was speaking, she that was nothing but just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts.
General Blanche, welcome. There's much I would like to cover today. The president's budget proposes steep cuts to important programs that combat hate crimes, protect civil rights, prevent gun violence, along with other.
Oh yeah, I love this lady right here. She's awesome. She's very patriotic lady right here. Delario or something like that. Her name is.
That I believe will weaken efforts to keep our community safe. In an ordinary time, during an ordinary administration, these are topics that I would focus on. But these are not ordinary times. And this is not an ordinary administration. No, this administration has engaged in what are perhaps the most brazen acts of flagrant corruption I've ever seen. And you are at the center of many of them, Mr. Blanche. I know you do not like it when people bring up the fact that before you joined the Justice Department, you were President Trump's personal attorney. But when you are issuing memos granting the president, his children, and their companies immunity from audits or prosecution for tax offenses, your previous role becomes relevant information. When you preside over a deal to take $1.8 billion of taxpayer money to create a slush fund to pay out violent criminals who pleaded guilty to assaulting police officers, you cannot be surprised when people question your impartiality. Federal courts have blocked the fund from paying out any claims for the time being. But I am not at all convinced that this administration has given up. You left yourself a lot of room with your carefully worded statement, Mr. Blanche. There is effectively no oversight to this slush fund. You appoint every member of the commission, and the president can fire any of them at any time for any reason. There is no definite standard for who is and is not eligible to receive a payout. Quote, weaponization and lawfare are not legally defined terms. Who does and does not qualify appears to be entirely at the discretion of the people that you appoint. There is no transparency built into the fund. There is no congressional oversight. The public has no way of knowing who has filed a claim, of how much, or on what grounds. Conversely, we do not know who has been denied a claim.
Hey, someone in the chat named Roscoe. What's up, Roscoe? So Roscoe wants to repeal the 19th Amendment. So what I suggest to Roscoe is he goes tell, all his MAGA woman family members, all the MAGA women that he knows. Roscoe, you got to go tell all the MAGA women to not vote. That way they can be loyal to your orange god.
Why it was denied. We do not even know the process by which claims will be filed or payments dispersed. All we know for certain is that President Trump's personal lawyer turned acting attorney general set up a $1.8 billion fund with taxpayer money that can be used to pay off just about anyone.
There's all kinds of what's up, not in me house. Man, there's evidence up the yin yang of all Donald Trump's corruption. I mean, he tried to take $10 billion away from the taxpayers. For starters, his son got a government contract for his drones for like $600 million.
Just about anything. It can be used to pay out violent criminals who assaulted police officers and ransacked the Capitol on January 6th. I was evacuated from the Capitol on January 6th. These are the people who were arrested. They were tried.
Hey, Timothy, exactly. Yeah, Trump's not even hiding his corruption. And the MAGA cult members love it. I guess the MAGA cult members are winning a little too much with the gas prices and the grocery prices.
Convicted and then pardoned by the administration. And now he wants to raid the Treasury to pay them. It is unconscionable. This sort of a scandal that it would ruin any other administration and any other time. But because President Trump has rendered House Republican leadership so completely impotent, there will be likely no accountability until the next Congress. In addition to this.
All right, let me what's up, Michael Smith? Let me debunk your comment real quick. I'll put it in JD Vance terms. Well, there's 2 points to this, Michael. First point is that the Epstein investigation was still open under Biden, so he couldn't really investigate it because it was still open. Second point I want to make, Michael, is that Donald Trump ran his whole presidency on releasing the Epstein files. So and then he did a 180. So he lied to all you MAGA cult members. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
You issued a memo stating that the United States is, quote, hereby forever barred and precluded from prosecuting or pursuing any and all claims, end quote, against the president, his family, or their businesses related to ongoing tax investigations. Retroactive immunity would be a curious benefit to bestow on someone who has done nothing wrong. If the president, his associates, and family members were innocent of whatever they were being investigated for, the investigation would surely bear that out. But now we will never know. Congress and the American people are left to speculate what could have possibly prompted this unprecedented settlement that exempts the president from any accountability for his actions.
I mean, while Donald Trump was getting booed mercilessly at the Knicks game yesterday, stuffing his face with pizza, hot dogs, and French fries, and throwing his trash all over the floor, U.S. soldiers got shot down in a helicopter with his illegal war.
This is staggering. I had not planned on using my time during this hearing to raise these issues, but I would be deficient in my duty as a member of the Congress were I to ignore this extraordinary display of self-dealing, self-service, self-enrichment by this administration, beginning with the president on down. All year on this committee, we have seen dramatic cuts to programs that help American families who are struggling with the cost of living. We do not have money for food or for housing, to bring down the cost for utilities or gasoline or health care. The president said there will be no money for daycare, for Medicaid, for Medicare. But by God, we do have $1.8 billion for a corrupt payout scheme for the president and his political allies. It is shameful. I look forward to hearing your answers to our questions today, Mr. Blanche. Thank you, and I yield back.
I now want to recognize our witness, Acting Attorney General Blanche, for an opening statement.
All right, here comes the man of the hour himself, Todd Blanche. Here he comes up with his opening statement.
Your written statement will be entered into the record. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Mang, as well, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for.
All right, just want to give everybody a heads up that this guy Todd Blanche is nothing but a weasel and a slime ball, and every single thing he's about to say is nothing but utter lies. So keep that in mind.
Opportunity to present President Trump's fiscal year 2027 budget for the Department of Justice. As you all know, the request totals $41.2 billion, which is a 13% increase over fiscal year 2026, underscoring our department's renewed focus on reducing violent crime, combating the fentanyl crisis, strengthening the border and immigration enforcement, expanding fraud prevention.
Hey, what's up, Living Dead girl? Hey, good to hear from you. Just getting this party started right here with this Todd Blanche hearing. Yeah, Carlo the Husky and I are doing well, doing splendid. The weather's been pretty hot over here in Los Angeles. It's like summer pretty much for sure, like 90 degrees. But yeah, we went to the park earlier today, took them on another evening walk, so we're just hanging out now.
Ensuring that our law enforcement agencies have the resources they need to protect the American people. Violent crime reduction remains one of the department's highest priorities. Since January 20th, 2025, the Department of Justice has indicted more than 260 TDA members, crippling leadership and dismantling operational networks. Across our major law enforcement components, the results have been historic. Federal law enforcement helped drive a 20% decrease in the national murder rate in 2025, arrested 44,000 violent offenders, which was double the previous year, and seized over 2,200 kilograms of fentanyl. Last year, law enforcement captured 8 of the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives, located 6,300 missing children, and arrested more than 2,000 child predators. The DEA has made thousands of fentanyl-related arrests and seized millions of fentanyl pills and hundreds of kilograms of fentanyl powder. In an August surge alone, DEA executed over 600 arrests, seized multi-ton quantities of narcotics, and recovered more than 11 million in drug proceeds. DEA continues to disrupt global supply chains from source to street. The United States Marshal Service, which is one of the smallest federal law enforcement agencies with roughly 3,800 deputies, arrested more than 73,000 fugitives, conducted 308,000 prisoner movements, housed over 55,000 detainees, and provided protection for 18 federal protectees, including Supreme Court justices' residences. The Marshals also, as you all know, manage over $10.4 billion in seized assets and remain essential to federal judicial security. ATF continues to be a leader in the federal effort to combat violent crime. Since January 2025, ATF has arrested more than 8,700 violent offenders and seized nearly 44,000 illegal firearms, including 5,100 interdicted before reaching their destination of Mexico. ATF agents also seized 2.7 million rounds of illegal ammunition, more than 28,300 illegal explosives, and conducted over 3,500 arson and explosives investigations. To sustain these historic results, the fiscal year 2027 budget includes $22.2 billion for DOJ's law enforcement components and U.S. attorneys' offices. This is a 16% increase over fiscal year 2026. These investments build on our tremendous progress and will ensure continued momentum in violent crime reduction nationwide. We are also strengthening immigration enforcement efforts. The Executive Office for Immigration Review has reduced the immigration case backlog by more than 447,000 cases since President Trump took office. The budget provides almost $900 million for EOR to continue rebuilding its workforce and to modernize case processing systems. Across the entire Department of Justice, nearly $4 billion supports immigration-related enforcement activities. And finally, the department launched the National Fraud Enforcement Division to expand federal fraud enforcement and better protect taxpayer-funded programs. The budget includes $30 million to hire 100 attorneys and enhance data analytics capabilities with a goal of combating large-scale criminal fraud schemes. DOJ is also modernizing the grants process by consolidating COPS, OJP, and OVW.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure, Captain Homer. Yeah, we got Pete Kegsbreath over there, getting drunk on the job. Same with Cash Patel. Cash Patel's over there with the hockey team, getting drunk, taking the private jet on taxpayer money.
Into the new Bureau of Justice grants. The goal is to provide a unified and simplified approach to federal grant making while preserving the missions of each office. The department also faces serious budgetary constraints. Fiscal year 2026 marked the second.
It's funny how all of a sudden Trump and Hegseth, with the military helicopter getting shot down, there's like 2 points to this. Like Trump said the military was destroyed 100%. And it's like, if they're 100% destroyed, how are they shooting down an Apache helicopter? These guys are such liars. And then they say they're retaliating for self-defense, but they changed the name from Department of Defense to Department of War. These guys are Looney Tunes.
Budgets for several components, basically equating to a decrease in funding because costs and expenses increase year over year. The Bureau of Prisons remains under-resourced, funded at $8.1 billion, almost $300 million below fiscal year 2025. It risks insolvency without additional support. The President's request of $10.3 billion is essential to restore staffing and to maintain safe and secure facilities. In closing, the fiscal year 2027 budget reflects our unwavering commitment to public safety, strong law enforcement partnerships, and responsible stewardship of taxpayer dollars. With your continued support, the Department of Justice will remain strong, effective, and fully equipped to protect the American people. Thank you, and I look forward to answering your questions, Chairman.
Thank you, General.
It's crazy that this Todd Blanche clown and that loser Pam Bondi, like Todd Blanche was Trump's personal lawyer, and then Trump's hanging his like giant picture outside of the Department of Justice building, like it's North Korea or something. Crazy times. They all need to be impeached, removed, and imprisoned ASAP.
We will now proceed under the 5-minute rule with questions for the witness. I'll begin by recognizing myself. We all too well, drug trafficking and drug abuse continue to devastate our communities and town. In December of 25, President Trump designated fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction by executive order. How has that historic designation aided the department in its fight against illicit fentanyl? And please share how your 27 budget request reflects that designation.
Thank you. So, look, I think calling the men that are sending poison to this country terrorists is exactly what they are. And what it does by President Trump doing that is not only there's resources that are more readily available because of that designation, but it also allows our Homeland Security Task Force.
What a joke. This guy's over here designating fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction. Well, I got something for you, Trump. I got my weapon of mass destruction right here. Let's partake in this weapon of mass destruction. Some good old-fashioned THC. All right, weapon of mass destruction time.
Around the country, there's one in every single state, to effectively focus on not only the narco terrorists that are in Mexico and South America, but the drug dealers that are on our streets, in our communities, rural communities, city communities. Everybody's affected by fentanyl. It remains a priority of this department. It will be a priority for as long as President Trump is in office. And that's why you see that we have an increase, that we're asking for more DEA agents, we're asking for more money, and it's exactly to combat that problem.
Let me turn to the issue of illicit vape products, which is something that is sending children to the hospital, some as young as middle schoolers in my district, and it's true around the country. I'm pleased to see that the department and its components, such as DEA, ATF, and others, directing its efforts to tackle this emerging threat, such as last year's Operation Vapor Trail. Please share how the department is tackling that issue.
Man, this guy that's speaking right here, I don't know who's worse to listen to, him, Grassley, or Trump. Oh my goodness, it's like nails on a chalkboard with these people.
And outline your plans to continue this effort in fiscal 27.
Look, this is an example of an all-of-government approach to tackle this problem. It means working with other agencies outside of DOJ. It means working with state and local partners to combat this very serious problem that affects the youth.
Oh yeah, when I first started deep diving into like politics like a year ago, like watching like these hearings, these town halls, press conferences and stuff, and like learning like Chuck. At first, Chuck Schumer will get you. I'll be like, oh yeah, Chuck Schumer's a man of the people. But then like after a week, I realized, oh man, this Chuck Schumer, he's bad news.
A lot of our most vulnerable, and it's been a priority for the past 14 months. It will remain a priority, and part of it is not only enforcement, but it's also education and making people understand the importance of, and the dangers associated with this. And look, we've been doing that for.
Oh yeah, Lindsey Graham, that guy is horrible.
Jura will continue to do it going forward.
As I mentioned in my opening statement, I applaud the department's efforts to take an aggressive stance on those who defraud the American taxpayer. In recent weeks, we've seen several examples of charges brought, guilty pleas entered, and successful convictions of those who have committed fraud. Tell us about the department's new National Fraud Enforcement Division and highlight some of the division's early successes.
This is one of the most important.
It's funny how they're making these. They're wasting taxpayer money to do these like fraud divisions when we already know where all the fraud, corruption, waste, fraud, and corruption is coming from. Is coming from the Orange Man himself and his whole cabal.
Doing at the Department of Justice, we stood up a new fraud division, not because we haven't prosecuted fraud for a long time, but because we want to make sure that there is a renewed focus out of Washington, D.C. and at every U.S. Attorney's office to combat fraud. And these are individuals, the people that we're targeting are literally stealing from this country. So they are signing up for programs where they're not entitled to it, whether it's daycare centers, whether it's SNAP benefits, and the focus will be not only on the big players, but on the small players too. And we've asked for money for 100 prosecutors to help with that effort. But this is again an all DOJ effort to combat fraud. You mentioned it. You're already seeing results, and you're going to continue to see results in the coming months and years as we continue to focus on this.
The National Fraud Enforcement Division, established after the passage of the fiscal year 26 Commerce, Justice, and Appropriations Act. For this current fiscal year, tell us how the department plans to fund and staff that division that seems to be hitting the ground running.
So a couple different ways. We moved prosecutors from the criminal division that were doing fraud work to the new division. A different prosecutor from every U.S. Attorney's office has been designated to work within this division, although they'll stay obviously in their U.S. Attorney's office. And then with the expected money that we're getting, we're going to hire. And so it's a combination of existing talent within the department and bringing more talent in over the next year or so.
How does this do?
Yeah, the only member of the Republican Party that actually had a spine before it got hijacked by these MAGA psychopaths, particularly Donald Trump and his cronies, was Thomas Massie. Yeah, Thomas Massie was like the only Republican that actually had a spine.
And interact with us.
And maybe like Rand Paul. Maybe. Or Tom Tillis. Tom Tillis wasn't afraid to say it how it is. I heard Nancy Mace. I heard Donald Trump disown Nancy Mace because she, like, anyone that comes out on the Epstein files, like, voted to release it. Like, Donald Trump like hates them.
So the agency.
So closely, and so it's a partner. It's working with not only FBI and HSI and state AGs and state inspector generals, but also U.S. attorneys' offices. And again, this is not a new thing to.
Hey, what's up? What's up, Angie, Angel baby? But yeah, all the politicians, they all got skeletons in the closet, hand in the cookie jar, what and whatnot. I mean, for the Democrat side, I like Jamie Raskin, Mark Kelly. There's some good ones out there. I'm on the fence about Cory Booker, but at least Cory Booker, comes out and says a bunch of stuff. But pretty much any politician that takes money from Netanyahu and that whole regime, Like they're compromised as well.
Uh,
But that's why I like having these YouTubeville watch parties, so we can have like an open chat room and have like a live, in real time reaction to these hearings, so we can all share our thoughts, and have a jolly good old time, So feel free to share your opinions. Appreciate it, everyone that has. Hit the like button, and this chat's for the people, by the people. We all want to be heard and hear what you got to say. So this is we're all about freedom of speech over here. So let it rip. I'm about to let a bonglo number 2 rip myself, actually.
a renewed effort by the Department of Justice to combat what has become a very big problem in this country with a lot of people just stealing from the money, from the generosity of the American taxpayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Attorney General, I wanted to ask a few questions about the anti-weaponization fund. We know that the department has agreed to pause this effort until at least June 12th. I wanted to ask what your plans were for the fund after June 12th.
So thank you. So look, we're not moving forward with the fund. You're right that there's a date that in the case in the Eastern Virginia in June, but we are not moving forward with the fund, period. The reasons for the fund is something that President Trump talked about for a long time.
Hey, what's up, Amber Leslie? What's up, everyone? What's up, Captain Homer, Amber Leslie, Living Dead Girl? Living Dead Girl says AIPAC and Epstein class are one and the same thing. Absolutely. Yeah, there was that Jean-Luc Burnell guy. Like they're all like homies, like Trump and that Jean-Luc Burnell and Casablancas. Like they're just a bunch of old pervy weird dudes, and they just all hung out and just did weird shit. But anyways, what's up, Audra? What's up, Cruz? What's happening, everybody? Yeah, just chilling out, watching this Todd Blanche hearing. Still about an hour and a half left, so let's see what happens.
The fact that there were a lot of people in this country who had their government weaponized against them. The reasons for the fund, I think, it remain as important as they were before, but we are not moving forward with the fund.
Not moving forward ever?
Correct.
Oh, there's no more fund then?
Well, to the extent there was a fund, and remember the fund wasn't set up yet. There were no commissioners named. There was no claimants brought anything in front of. There was no claims made yet. So yes, we're not moving forward with the fund.
There was another Epstein member that was all up in Trump's inner circle. Some guy named Leon Black, and a lot of these people that were in his inner circle that like are all up in the Epstein files. It really should be called the Trumpstein files because Trump's name is in there 3 million times. Over 3 million. He's in there more than Epstein. So we'll call him the Trumpstein files. But yeah, like a lot of these, like the sons of these people, they all got like a role in the White House. They're all like in Trump's cabinet. Even Coward Nutlick, he was over there hanging out with Epstein. I don't know whatever they were doing out there. But yeah, Coward Nutlick lied under oath about his whole Epstein connection. So that guy should already be impeached on that alone.
You and Associate Attorney General Woodward signed earlier documents regarding the settlement and this fund. Would both of you now sign and release documents reversing the DOJ's position on the fund?
We're not moving forward with the fund. I'm not sure what that means to sign documents reversing. There's nothing to reverse. We're not moving forward with the fund.
We know about the court case, the decision, when we've heard press reports, obviously. But is there any way that you could put this in writing? I don't know if there are other ways that you could use another vehicle to move forward with a similar fund or similar intention. And we just want to reassure the American public. We've heard from both Republicans and Democrats, constituents and Americans across the country about this fund. And I think they would love to be reassured that this fund will not progress.
I'm telling you, it's not. I guess I'm not sure. I'm not trying to be flippant with you. I'm just saying I'm telling you it's not. I'm not. That there's we put out a statement yesterday. There's been an injunction, a temporary injunction filed in EDVA. There's litigation in DC. There's litigation in the Southern District of Florida. But notwithstanding what we do in those litigations and defending our rights and making sure our rights are protected, we're not moving forward with the fund.
Okay, yeah, the statement I thought was just about until June 12th. So if it won't progress after June 12th, that's great to hear, and we hope to see this in writing.
I mean, I think there'll be a transcript of what I say here, so that will be right.
Hey, well, we will work with you and hold you to it. Thank you very much. I wanted to quickly ask my remaining time about hate crimes. We are concerned about the president's budget request eliminating 3 largest sources of federal support to local law enforcement for hate crimes responses and prevention. Legislation passed on a bipartisan basis, Jabara Hire, No Hate, Shepherd Bird, Hate Crimes Prevention, and community-based approaches to prevent and address hate crimes grant programs. Why are we proposing to eliminate the very programs that are helping our law enforcement and targeted communities?
Well, look, there's a lot of money that we have asked for to combat violent crime, to combat this type of crime. A lot of overlap includes hate crime. I'm happy to have my team work with you to make sure that we're getting money where it needs to be. That's an important issue to President Trump, and it's an important issue to the Department of Justice as well.
Can you describe or name the areas of overlap?
Well, there's billions of dollars. I think we asked for $12 billion to combat violent crime and grants and things like that. A lot of those grants will go to programs that at least part of it includes combating hate crime. And there's other individualized grants, some of which are earmarked along the way that we've funded for a long time, and that we will continue to work with you on making sure that we're addressing that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're working together as we have seen and worked together here in Congress, bipartisan, bicameral ways, that combating hate crimes isn't just about prosecution, but also about prevention and working with community organizations as well. So I don't have time left, but I would love to continue to work together on this issue.
I agree with that.
I yield back.
I agree with that.
Judge Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Attorney General, thank you for being here. We appreciate very much hearing from you. I've got to ask you about something that's dear to my heart. I authored the Justice Served Act a while back, and it was its purpose was to help law enforcement use advanced DNA technology to solve crime. And a lot of them don't have it advanced. Today is the forensic generic genealogy is the next generation of capability.
Geez, I've never seen this person before, but there's another politician that's like well past retirement, like 102 years old right here.
The FBI has already used it successfully in cases like Rachel Morin and Brian Noberg. However, many unsolved violent crimes remain at state and local levels. These agencies lack the funding to scale for these investigations. Can you discuss DOJ's version of forensic generic genealogy and whether you can support the Carla Walker Act, which would help state and local enforcement solve violent crimes?
We very much support it, sir, and I think that it's extraordinarily important to federal law enforcement and to state and local law enforcement. We have, I think, over a dozen DOJ grant programs that are designed to further the research and further the technology in that space. I think that's an important place for us to be spending our money because it does solve crime.
And in turn, local people are going to get the opportunity to petition you to get help on that.
Correct.
On their crimes that they consider very important. As I think you may know, I was a former district judge in Texas. And I see the damages caused by lenient policies and judicial overreach. I think that creates damages, and it not only in moving cases along, but also in the people's view of justice and whether justice is being served. How is the department responding to the activist judges who issued nationwide injunctions against President Trump's immigration and national security actions? And what is your strategy for defending the executive authority in the courts?
Look, we are fiercely fighting for what we believe the law is, and when we have judges that disagree with that at the district court level, we are appealing constantly, and we have had extraordinary success at the appellate level, even in places like the Ninth Circuit, but in other circuits as well, because we're right. We're not violating the law. We're complying with the law that you all passed when it comes to immigration and the way that we're handling the immigration enforcement. We will continue to do that. When we lose at the district court level, which we do, especially with some of these judges that we think are just not following the law, we fight and we go back and we appeal. And that's what the system suggests we do. And that's exactly what we're doing.
At least where I come from, judges don't make new law or avoid the law that is written, but they follow the law. And it's a dilemma as far as I'm concerned. As a district judge, I swore to apply the law fairly. I appreciate the department's effort to restore equal justice under the law. The president's executive order ending weaponization of federal government was an important first step. Under the prior administration, the DOJ challenged several state laws restricting gender transition procedures for minors. What steps has the department taken to ensure the DOJ's decisions are guided by the Constitution, the public safety, and equal application of the law, rather than politics?
Look, it includes both active investigations in the civil space when there's hospitals or institutions that we believe are not complying with the law, and those are ongoing. We have multiple investigations going on in the civil space. It also includes active litigation against individuals or states that we believe are violating the Constitution, and we've been doing that almost since we came in a little over a year ago, and we're having, again, we're having success, and we're having success because we're right on the law. And even if it's not at the first step with the district court, when we appeal, we're having success. And our appellate lawyers, our civil lawyers are very busy, but they're doing a good job.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Laurel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could just follow up on my colleague Congresswoman Meng's questions. I have here, this is the order on the settlement, the $1.8 billion. And then this is the addendum to the order, which is about tax immunity. And this is a copy of the settlement agreement, and the Associate Attorney General signed this. These two documents were signed by yourself. Now, this is all in writing. This is all. Can you tell us here today that you are going to disavow this, and that you're going to rescind what you said to Ms. Meng in writing with these efforts? Both these three documents are in writing. Is that a yes or a no?
So I can't answer that yes or no. Do you want an answer?
Yeah.
Okay, so not yes or no. You gave me three documents. The only document I said we're not moving forward on today is the first document identified, which is the anti-weaponization fund. There's still a settlement agreement, and there's still the second document I signed is not an addendum. It's a separate Attorney General order.
Okay. So, but you're not going to rescind the addendum, the second order?
No.
The only thing you're talking about here, so the blanket immunity is not something that you're going to move back on?
It's not blanket immunity. That's not true.
It is.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I feel you, lady. I feel you. I do the same expressions.
Okay. The United States releases, waives, acquits, and forever discharges each of the plaintiffs from and is hereby forever barred and precluded from prosecuting or pursuing any and all claims, counterclaims, causes of actions, appeals, requests for any reliefs. I mean, this is an order from you.
I love this lady. She echoes like how we all feel about this crooked administration, regime, cabal. It's like we're just at a loss of words. All we can do is just make these expressions and just like shock and awe and disgust.
You're not prepared. You are prepared to say that the president and his family will be barred, are immune from. That's a yes.
No, it was not a yes. I had not answered the question. I can't answer if you want me to.
What are you doing with this?
Okay, so there was a settlement, which is one of the documents you
Yes.
showed. Okay, part of the settlement included the second order that you just held up,
Right.
and that is still nothing has changed with that. What I said today, what I've said a couple times today, as what we talked about yesterday, is we're not moving forward with the anti-weaponization fund.
Okay, but you are moving forward with this second order.
It's not moving forward. There's a settlement. There was a settlement that the IRS entered into with President Trump and others, his family and his companies. As part of that settlement, as is customary in IRS settlements, there's a separate AG order.
Friends, listen to what is being said here today. Here, this is really pretty extraordinary. That we are going to forever barred and precluded from examining or prosecuting the president, his sons, and the Trump organization's current tax filings. Simply put, you just gave the president and his family a tax immunity to the tune of about $100 million.
Not true.
Well, yes, you have, my
No,
friend.
it's not true.
You know, look, and I just want to say this: the Save America PAC, paid you nearly $10 million between March of 2024 and December of 2024 to serve as the President Trump's personal defense attorney. My God, don't you not find there's any conflict of interest in what you are doing here as the acting Attorney General of the United States?
I didn't know. What are you saying is a conflict? I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, he is Trump's personal lawyer, so he takes an oath to Trump, not to us.
Listen,
The fact that I used to have a job and I have a current job.
I got less time left, but I just. Where are you going on what you're doing on this? Is that you've taken one piece and you said, okay, we have had a ton of backlash on this on this $1.8 billion slush fund. However, so we'll not move on that, but as part of the settlement, which you said, which is this immunity for the president and his family and his business, etc., that stands. Thank you, Fred.
It's not immunity, ma'am. It's
Thank you.
It's a promise.
Thank you. It's immunity.
It's not immunity. It's not immunity. Okay, so it's not immunity. What it says is like any time the IRS settles with an individual taxpayer or another company as part of the
Yeah, to all the MAGA cult members that are commenting on her looks, well, guess what? Your orange god looks like a rotisserie chicken that's been sitting for 10 hours under a Walmart heat lamp.
It's standard. It's typical to get rid of past ongoing audits. It's not a forward-looking document. It's nothing that gives any sort of immunity in the future to the president or his family or his organizations. And so by you saying that, it's not true.
By you saying what you've said, it is not true. So thank you, and I yield back.
That of the gentlelady has expired. Mr. Clyde.
Thank you, you're an attorney. And with that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Acting Attorney General Blanche, for being here today. I want to commend the Department of Justice's work in protecting Americans' Second Amendment rights. Your fiscal year 27 budget requested $1.4 million to establish a Second Amendment rights section within the Civil Rights Division, and I was proud to lead an amendment in the FY27 CJS Appropriations Act to codify it. This section monitors state and local laws for unconstitutional infringements and pursues enforcement where necessary. Unlike the Biden DOJ, which sought to charge service-disabled veterans with felonies for using stabilizing braces, the Trump Department of Justice has already sued multiple jurisdictions over unconstitutional gun laws, and I look forward to ensuring that this office has the resources that it needs. Congressional Republicans and President Trump also delivered the biggest Second Amendment victory in over 90 years by eliminating the NFA transfer and manufacturing taxes on short-barreled firearms and suppressors.
I mean, the Democrats are the only ones that are holding this country together. Trump and his whole criminal network, they're destroying this country. I'll say it like Trump. If it wasn't for the Democrats, the country would be dead.
One big beautiful bill. For 91 years, the NFA subjected gun owners to these unconstitutional infringements. Removing these taxes is a major step towards restoring those freedoms. However, Congress's intent was to remove both the taxation and the registration requirements, as they are inseparably linked. Without the NFA tax, there's...
Hey, what's up? What's up, Possum? How you doing? Just checking out, having a little Todd Blanche watch party. This is a hearing that happened like 7 days ago. It's still pretty fresh, so I haven't seen it, so I figure it's worth a watch, so we can all check it out. But what up, Living Dead Girl, Captain Homer, James, Eaker, Possum Holler, Angel Baby, Victor Davis, what's happening? What up? Smile for the file. Sorry if I missed anybody. I'm reading all the comments though, but I just want to let this play. But every once in a while, I'll say what's up. But yeah, please hit the like button. Thanks for hanging out and sharing your opinions.
For the registration requirement, since, as I understand it, the registration exists solely to account for the taxes paid, literally by the serial number of the firearm. Yet the Department of Justice is currently not following this congressional intent. So, sir, do you agree that the National Firearms Act, codified in the Internal Revenue Code and originally part of the Treasury Department, is a tax law?
Yes, although my disagreement respectfully is on the intent of Congress. If that's the congressional intent, I welcome it. It's not an objection the department has to the goal you're talking about. It's just understanding the congressional intent when it comes to whether the tax is extended.
Well, if it's a tax law and you eliminate the tax, then, then the registration, in my opinion, has no foundation, and I wrote it. So,
well, that's pretty good.
Okay.
Intent, I suppose.
If the NFA registry no longer records the payment of a tax on the zero tax firearms and it exists solely to register them, then this appears to be in direct conflict with the Firearm Owners Protection Act of 1986, which explicitly prohibits any federal database or system that tracks firearms or their owners. And I would like to repeat that for you. And it says in 926, section USC 18 926, it says no such rule or regulation prescribed after the date of the enactment of the Firearm Owners Protection Act may require that any system of registration of firearms.
Hey, you guys remember the Melania movie? Oh man, what a failure! they used our taxpayer money to do it, or Jeff Bezos funded it, or something like that. But the director of that Melania movie was straight up from the Epstein files. That guy, I forget his name, Ratcliffe maybe or something. I can't remember. But yeah, that person was all up in the Epstein files, and that was the director of Melania's new movie. I love this. Somebody did. There was a billboard over here in Los Angeles, and somebody tagged it. That shit's hilarious. Oh man, whoever did that's a legend. All right, back to the hearing.
Owners or firearms transactions or dispositions be established. That's the FOPA of 1986. So, in your view, is the Department of Justice
Ratner. Thanks, Living Dead Girl. Ratner.
Prohibition against the firearm registry for these zero tax firearms?
Look, I think I am familiar with this issue. I know it's under active litigation, so I want to be careful. I will tell you that is something that that we're working on getting to a good answer to.
Okay, well, I encourage you to have a great answer. And
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, the whole Trump family, like dating back like 5 generations of Trump, they're all draft dodgers. Not a single one has ever joined the military. Like that's why his great grandpa fled his home country because he didn't want to do the military inscription. So I think they got their fortune off like during like the gold rush era. They got their like fortune. They were fronting like they were selling shovels, but they were really like it was just all about like prostitution.
to eliminate,
And Fred Trump, he got arrested at a KKK rally that turned into a riot in 1929. So the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, as they say.
registration for those things that are not taxed when the database is indeed a tax database.
Understood.
Thank you. Now, I was happy to see that this committee to take action on this very important issue by prohibiting the registration of zero tax firearms in the FY27 CJS appropriations bill. And I look forward to continuing this fight moving forward. So I'm going to give you some ammunition there. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Now, Acting Attorney General Blanche, I also want to applaud the fantastic work the Trump administration and your DOJ have done in curbing the waste, fraud, and abuse of taxpayer dollars. Vice President Vance's task force to eliminate fraud is already leading to results, uncovering billions of dollars in fraud, and specifically your department has created the National Fraud Enforcement Division to lead the federal government's efforts to investigate, prosecute, and remedy rampant fraud. My constituents want accountability for the fraud that has siphoned away their hard-earned tax dollars, so I certainly welcome the click of handcuffs on those stealing from the American taxpayers. So can you elaborate on some of the most egregious cases that your department is prosecuting or has already prosecuted?
I mean, look, yes. So there's a couple of examples. The most egregious cases are when individuals create completely fictitious organizations, whether it's a daycare center, whether it's an autism center. And so this is money, our tax dollars, going to completely fictitious entities, and it runs through the state. And what we found in some states is there's virtually no compliance, there's no check on the system. And so it's in some ways a very easy crime to catch once we identify it, because it's completely made up. And so this isn't an example of a doctor checking the wrong box, but is actually performing a service. This is pure theft. And we've seen that, unfortunately, too much in this country. And so that's, again, one of the main reasons why we started the new.
Man, these guys over here talking about waste, fraud, and abuse. I remember Dr. Oz not too long ago and Trump doing a press conference about like how Tylenol's bad and this and that. And then the whole time they're trying to like sell you their own version of Tylenol.
Is because we will save hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars through this effort.
Thank you very much, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Mr. Ivey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the ranking member, I did want to follow up on ranking member Mang's questions about Binance, which frankly looks to me like a blatant pay for pardon scheme. So let me walk through some of the facts.
Oh yeah, all of Donald Trump's pardons of all these war criminals and drug lords. I mean, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance were over there in Hungary trying to put Viktor Orban on a pedestal, a dictator on our taxpayer dime. What a bunch of losers.
That lead me to that conclusion. In late 2023, Binance and CEO Zhao agreed to pay a penalty of $4.36 billion. The U.S. judge approved the guilty plea for multiple federal crimes and a civil settlement for anti-money laundering and sanctions, and that was in 2023. Donald Trump is elected president in November 2024. December 2024, Mr. Zhao and Mr. Witkoff meet in Abu Dhabi at a Bitcoin conference. In March of 2025, a couple months later, you're confirmed as Deputy Attorney General. March 25th, 2025, World Liberty Financial announced that it would launch a stablecoin called USD1. World Liberty Financial is a family-owned business by the Trump family. Two of his sons are in it. Mr. Witkoff's got interest in it as well. 1 month later, in April 2025, Binance's founder, Mr. Zhao, was sentenced to federal prison for money laundering and other federal crimes that included funding to terrorist groups like ISIS, Al Qaeda, and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. On May 1, World Liberty Financial announces that an Emirati company called MGX, that also has ties to Mr. Witkoff, would use $2 billion on the stablecoin I just mentioned, USD1, to invest in Binance. This gave President Trump and his family a revenue stream that could be worth tens of millions of dollars. According to the Wall Street Journal, Binance took steps that catapulted the Trump's family's ventures into stablecoin product, enhancing its credibility and pushing its market capitalization up from 127 million to over $2.1 billion. Now, on May 5th, Mr. Zhao publicly stated,
Hey, what's up, Eric Klein? Yeah, Narco Rubio, once they illegally went and kidnapped Maduro, I bet you Marco Rubio went straight for his stash. Narco Rubio, as they call him.
applied for a presidential pardon.
And I think Don Jr. partakes in those sugar booger parties. Heck, even the MAGA cult members partake in that, except they don't do cocaine. They snort up the Kool-Aid. They don't even drink the Kool-Aid anymore. They snort the Kool-Aid powder now.
Crimes that he previously pled guilty to and had been sentenced to jail for. And the restitution amount of 4.3 billion plus was put in place. A few months later, on October 21, 2025,
Hey, what's up, Thomas?
President Trump grants him a full pardon with no explanation, by the way, in the document, at least that I saw. So this looks like a pay-to-play kind of scenario. You've got the meeting that takes place. You've got the money that.
Oh yeah, for sure, living dead girl. I'm not surprised. I mean, that's the only explanation for why somebody would still support the Orange Man.
Transferred to an entity that's owned by the Trump family. I don't think the president has actually divested his interest there necessarily, but I could stand corrected on that. But certainly his family still has interest in it, as does Mr. Witkoff. And then a few months after that, he issues a pardon. So why haven't you appointed a special prosecutor to take a look at this? This looks, on its face, it just looks like a quid pro quo scenario that should be investigated. Why haven't you taken that step?
Well, the power to pardon in our Constitution is given to the President of the United States. The Constitution does not require him to provide any explanation for who he chooses to pardon or not pardon, or commute or not commute. And so I very much reject the idea.
Hey, what's up, Massey? That's hilarious.
That the premise that this looks like something is a
Well, let me-
to a point.
Let me reclaim my time. The Constitution gives him absolute power to pardon. It does not give power.
Shit, they probably even smoke the Kool-Aid too. They'll probably pack a bowl and then they'll sprinkle some Kool-Aid on top.
In exchange for payments, clearly. And a $2.1 billion payment to his family. And we'll set aside the fact that he should have divested from all of those interests anyway. But the fact that he gave that he gets the $2 billion piece, and then a few months later pardons the guy who was guilty of money laundering and providing money to, or helping to finance the money laundering operation for ISIS and Al Qaeda and the guys we're fighting in Iran right now, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. That's not a problem.
Who he chooses to pardon is not a problem, period. And you're saying all these things that are just not
What's
true.
the legal basis for that statement?
The Constitution of our
The
United States.
Constitution does not give
Yes,
you
it
the
does.
authority to
Yes, it
pardon
does.
in exchange for payments.
Well,
It
what
does
is
not
that?
permit
For
bribery.
payments. You told me nothing about exchange for payments. You said there's.
Well, I just told
Just put
you.
a bunch of facts together.
Well, that's why you need a special
conclusion.
prosecutor. Shouldn't somebody take it? Clearly, you're not going to do it. Shouldn't somebody be appointed, a truly experienced prosecutor, to take a look at this and conduct the investigation? And then if he reaches the conclusion that you're right, that's fine. But if he finds that there's a problem with what the
You want a
president
special
did or his
prosecutor.
family, then he should move forward with prosecuting that case.
Has expired.
I very much disagree.
Mr. Strong,
Thank you, Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Mean, for convening this hearing. Acting Attorney General Blanche, thank you for being here with us today. I appreciate you and the department for your work supporting law enforcement and addressing evolving threats across this country. As you know, North Alabama and Redstone Arsenal have become a premier hub for the DOJ and FBI operations supporting critical work in counterterrorism, explosives, and ballistic analysis, emerging UAS threats, and coordination across federal agencies. North Alabama has repeatedly demonstrated it can support the nation.
Hey, you guys remember, like, I forget when it was. It was earlier this year or sometime last year, but all those young Republicans, those so-called young Republicans, they all got caught in a group chat, sending like all this like racist stuff. This guy kind of looks like one of those young Republicans right here.
Critical missions with a highly skilled workforce, state-of-the-art facilities, and room for continued growth. The funds this committee approved last month include a planned investment in advanced training and operational support at Redstone Arsenal as part of the department's broader efforts to strengthen the FBI's readiness and capabilities. As Acting Attorney General, how do you plan to ensure that these investments support Redstone Arsenal's continued growth as a center for FBI training and operations?
Look, I think you're absolutely right that the facilities that the FBI and ATF have in that area is key to our to protecting our borders and key to everything from our drone anti-drone capabilities that we're working on. And so we're doing things like getting FBI personnel out of DC and down there where they should be working, and same with ATF. And look, there's a very it's an important law enforcement priority of this administration and of me to continue that effort. So I expect that you will see not infrastructure, which we've asked for money on, which we're spending money on, but also getting more of our talent.
Hey, what's up? Smile for the file. Hey, thanks for that comment. But yeah, it's crazy how it's like escalating and you know, Orange Man's a big baby, so like China's like supplying Iran, you know, with weapons, and Trump lifted all the sanctions off Putin, rolled out the red carpet for Putin. Like China's just like, you know, rubbing their hands together. They're just waiting to go take Taiwan. So it's boiling. The pot is boiling right now, folks. I mean, I hope nothing bad happens, but this Orange Man's insane.
Now there to continue the mission of the FBI.
Thank you. Also want to echo what my colleagues have said and commend the department for the DOJ's recent aggressive work to combat fraud. For years, bad actors have treated taxpayer-funded programs from pandemic relief, loans to Medicaid and SNAP benefits like their own personal piggy banks. In Minnesota, the feeding our...
Yeah, for sure. Exactly, yup. That's probably why he's trying to do like his bunker, you know? And I think that one dude, Peter Thiel, he moved out of the country because they all know like poop's about to hit the fan. Poop's about to hit the proverbial fan.
Scheme alone involved more than $250 million in fraud tied to federal children's nutrition and pandemic era programs. And just last month, the DOJ announced charges against 15 defendants accused of participating in more than $90 million in Medicaid fraud schemes. What steps does the department in taking to ensure that we are not just prosecuting these criminals, but actively clawing back every single?
Oh, is that where Peter Thiel? Is that where Peter Thiel scurried off to? Was Argentina? Makes sense why Donald Trump gave Argentina $40 billion and screwed over all the farmers.
Taxpayer dollar possible?
It's a great question, and I will tell you, every single indictment that you have seen from this department includes meaningful forfeiture efforts, whether it's freezing accounts the day of the arrest or in the time leading up to the arrest, or going after the assets that have been purchased by the defendants as part of our criminal forfeiture efforts. It's as important as arresting the bad guy as trying to recover the assets that they stole from the American taxpayer. It's every single, like I said, every time we make an arrest, every part of our investigation is focused on not only identifying the bad actors, but recovering our assets.
Thank you. Hardworking Americans go to work every day and follow the rules. They're sick and tired of the seeing their tax dollars stolen by scammers and non-U.S. citizens. The time is past.
What a klutz this guy is. No, it's your party, buddy. All your homies are the ones stealing the U.S. taxpayer money. Donald Trump sending pyramid scheme emails to all his supporters, like begging for like $10 bucks, even up to like $1,000 with these like pyramid scheme chain emails that he sends to all his supporters every day.
To make sure that we do what needs to be done. And I think that's what America's looking for. I was pleased to vote with the committee to provide the full request of $30 million for the department to hire 100 more attorneys to more effectively combat fraud targeting government programs and the American public. Attorney General Blanche, how will you, the additional attorneys, help ensure the large fraud investigation does not stop with first round of indictments, but continue until every individual?
Hey, what's up, Angel Baby? Yeah, politics can always be confusing, you know? Like, I've been around, like, since, like, Reagan. I mean, I was, like, a little kid during the Reagan years, but, you know, I've seen quite a few presidents in my lifetime. But all these politicians, you know, whenever you see those, like, campaign ads, you know, every election, they're, like, you know, bad-mouthing their opponents or promising you this and that, all this. The thing that Donald Trump has done for politics, though, is he's made it really easy to know who the good guys are. Like, pretty much anybody that supports Trump and his policies, they're just the bad guys. There's just no ifs, buts about it. So, you know, it's really easy these days. Just don't vote for any MAGA psychopath clowns.
Who knowingly participated has been identified and where appropriate, and they're appropriately prosecuted.
Yes, and thank you for the vote on the funding. Those prosecutors will help lead that effort. And what we're doing is we're working, this is, again, an all-government approach. So we're working with HHS, with our other federal partners to identify bad actors.
Oh, yeah, that Rick Scott guy, oh my goodness, that guy's horrible. He looks like the character from the old man from the movie Poltergeist. That's Rick Scott right there. He's like the Night of the Living Dead or something.
We're working with inspector generals from all these locations and working those cases with FBI, HSI, state and locals in the states that are willing to help us. And that's the whole point of the new fraud division, is to leave, whether you have committed a $1,001 fraud or whether you've committed a $100 million fraud, you should face a felony in this country for stealing from the American taxpayer. And that's what we're committed to doing. As you know, we started a year ago and we're not stopping.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I go back.
Everybody else back. Mr. Morelli.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for convening this. Thank you to Ranking Member Mang and Ranking Member DeLauro as well, and thank you to the Attorney General for appearing. I want to associate myself with the remarks by the Chairman, just to say I'm deeply frustrated that the Department is appearing and the Attorney General is appearing here nearly 3 weeks after the subcommittee and full committee have marked up Commerce, Justice, and Science Appropriations Bill. It's deeply troubling. This is not how the appropriations process is expected to work. And we would love to hear from you in the future. And I think we should ought to your budget priorities, question your leadership, what the leadership believes about these. So I just deeply frustrated. I hope it doesn't, I hope next year we don't repeat this. So I just wanted to associate myself with that. I was just curious, just as a follow-up to.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, all these Epstein class billionaires like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, they all want to put like microchip implants in us and harvest our organs.
Mr. Ivy's line of question: is it your testimony that if someone paid the President of the United States $1 million for a pardon, that would not violate federal law?
No, that is not my testimony.
What is your testimony about?
The testimony is that the power department in our Constitution is not limited. So what I mean by that is the president doesn't have to say why he's part of it.
No, I didn't say that. I'm asking you though. So if someone wrote in the memo of a check for $1 million to the president of the United States, any president, said for issuance of a pardon, would that be a violation of federal law?
Yes.
It would.
Potentially. I would.
Under what section of
facts? I think there would be a
You just said
violation of the bribery law. Yes.
bribery law, even though the Constitution gives you unlimited power as
The
president.
person that paid the bribe would be,
Okay.
for the president himself who accepted the money, I think you would need to impeach him in that case.
Gotcha.
At least under my reading of the Constitution.
Just wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying. I wanted to ask you on a completely.
All right, we're a little bit past halfway of this hearing. I got my hearing snacks, some Lunchables. I got some Trumpables. Trump would probably try to call these Trumpables.
I serve as the ranking member of the Committee on House Administration, which has jurisdiction over federal elections. As you know, federal law prohibits the deployment of military personnel or armed federal law enforcement officers from polling places.
Yes.
Federal law also prohibits intimidating, threatening, or coercing any person for the purpose of interfering with the right to vote. Violators of either of these laws are subject to criminal penalties, as you know, under federal law. The president has continued to talk about and issued rhetoric which suggests that he might be willing to deploy military personnel or federal agents, perhaps even FBI, at polling places. And I'm just want your assurance that you will not allow Department of Justice personnel around election places, polling places this November.
I'm sorry that I won't allow
Department like you
personnel around election places.
No,
We will comply with the law.
You will comply with the law. With federal law.
Yes.
And will you commit to investigating and prosecuting individuals who violate those protections or otherwise interfere with an American's right to vote?
We will definitely comply with the law, and the law enforcement will investigate alleged violations of law.
Thank you, sir. Just weeks ago, changing topics, ATF announced 34 regulatory changes affecting the agency's efforts to combat violent gun crime. At that announcement, you said, what we're doing today will actually help law enforcement. And the director, I think it's Cicada, added, we believe that these rules will not negatively impact public safety. Those are your words. Your regulations tell a different story. In the rule that allows a potential prohibited purchaser to skip a second background check, the department warns a prohibited person who obtains a firearm under the proposed rule and uses that firearm to inflict mass casualties would have been prevented under the current requirement.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's all I can afford under this Trump economy. Under Biden, it was steak and lobster all day, all night. But under Trump's economy, all we got is Lunchables now.
Which the department is asking be taken away. And in the
Hey, that's what's up, Living Dead Girl. Some Cajun peanuts. Nice.
restricting law enforcement from effectively tracing guns, the department, again, in the body of the regulatory reforms, warned that the change that you were asking for could delay or hinder federal, state, and local enforcement officers to track and stop violent offenders. Those are the department's warnings. Your own analysis acknowledges the changes could make it easier for prohibited individuals to obtain firearms and harder for law enforcement to track violent criminals. So you're the nation's chief law enforcement officer. You talked a lot about violent crime. Why is the department pursuing actions when the department analysis states it would potentially create a much higher risk of violent gun crime for the public?
The analysis you're talking about is not true, right? So that is what we talk about potentials with the new regulations that includes a variety of possibilities. When it comes to the regulation you're speaking about directly, that the problem that existed that we were trying to fix with that is making it more efficient and make it easier for law enforcement and for FFLs to make sure that only people who could have guns. And so the regulations that exist now that we're changing don't do that. They're actually outdated, and they're not the systems are not up to date, and that's what the regulation that you're speaking about, I believe, is designed to fix.
But I would just suggest that the analysis by the department in issuing these the elimination of these regulations actually identifies threats and potential harm to the public by doing the regulatory reforms you're suggesting. I'd ask you to look at it further, and I know my time is out. I want to yield back, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Sweet?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Attorney General, it's encouraging. It's encouraging to see overdose deaths decline over so much of our country, including in my home state of Indiana. And yet fentanyl remains the leading cause of death for Americans between ages 18 and 45. We've made progress, but we haven't knocked it down. So communities throughout my district continue to feel the consequences of this epidemic. Too many families are still grieving from the loss of loved ones from fentanyl-related overdoses. I commend the administration for the actions you have taken to secure our southern border, for aggressively prosecuting drug traffickers, and for holding China accountable for its role in supplying the precursor chemicals that have in part fueled this crisis. Those efforts are crucial, and I appreciate your leadership on this. However, despite the stronger enforcement measures here at home, fentanyl continues to reach across our borders.
Yeah, what they're doing is they're blowing innocent fishermen out of the water with their Tomahawk missiles.
Sometimes through Mexico, where the cartels use these precursor chemicals I've described to manufacture and traffic these drugs into the United States. Mr. Blanche, would you update us on what the DOJ under your leadership is doing to strengthen interdiction efforts real time this year, over the year ahead, through coordination, in particular with foreign law enforcement partners?
Yes, thank you. So,
Major Transit Hub.
thank you. Look, the biggest thing I can say is the Homeland Security Task Force effort, which is focused, its priority is stopping the flow of illegal narcotics, especially fentanyl, into our communities. And you're right that we've made progress, but we are nowhere near our goal. And with DEA, with HSI, with the FBI, we are now, every federal law enforcement agent is targeting and working with state and local law enforcement agent, and also international partners, including in Mexico, in Ecuador, and Colombia, even in Venezuela, to stop not only the flow from South America and Mexico, but also to the extent there's fentanyl in our communities. We're also completely focused on ridding the drug dealers and the fentanyl out of the communities as well. So this is not a problem that gets fixed overnight. It is such a crisis in this country that I promise you the next time that I'm before.
Yeah, if it's such a crisis, then why are you shutting down all the programs that help people with addiction?
We will still be talking about it, but that doesn't mean that we're not making extraordinary progress and that we're not getting fentanyl off the streets and we're putting bad guys in jail who are dealing it. And I commit to you that President Trump, all the way down to every federal prosecutor in this country and every FBI and DEA agent is focused on it.
And in your view, your budget will reflect that increased prioritization.
Correct.
We're working with
100%.
our foreign law enforcement partners.
Yes.
Effective information sharing across our federal, state, local, and our tribal.
That war on drugs has been going on since Nixon, like 1973 or something. Like the war on drugs is such a sham. Hey, you guys remember those commercials like from the 80s, like, hey, this is your brain on drugs, and they're like they're frying up an egg. Like, this is your brain on drugs. They need to bring that commercial back, but instead it should be like directed at the MAGA cult members. Be like, this is your brain on Donald Trump, and they just start frying an egg. But anyways, I'm about to get a W on the war on drugs right here. All right, let's go. Looks like I'm gonna win this battle. But by the way, that's medical hippie lettuce.
Law enforcement agencies is one of the key tools that we have. Programs like the regional information sharing systems, the risks are key to supporting criminal investigations. And I see that back in my home district. I was in Columbus, Indiana this past week. That police department, city of 50,000 people, is using risk technology to enhance audio and video evidence leading to the identification, arrest, and prosecution of armed robbery suspects. These programs deliver results for my constituents and the constituents of everyone else that I serve with up here today. I appreciate the work that Congress and DOJ continues to prioritize information sharing across all levels of law enforcement. Mr. Blanche, what is your department, how is your department prioritizing information sharing this year, going into the next year with these partnerships that are so crucial to bringing in these results?
So we work with at the basic level in the districts around this country. We work with our state and local partners in every single case that whether it's a state case or a federal case, we're working with them. And that you're totally right. That includes sharing information and making sure the systems can talk to each other. That costs money and upkeep.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I remember when I was a kid. I was born in like 1980, right? So like mid 80s, I was like, in first grade, kindergarten. I remember they would send these cops to our school with this like tray of drugs. And they're just telling you like, don't do it. But yeah, whatever happened to the DARE program? Is that still around?
Multiple grants that are designed to go to state and local law enforcement to make sure they're able to continue to have information technology that allows it to be effective with the federal government. And I agree with you that we cannot solve violent crime. We cannot solve the drug problem. We cannot help with murders and violent and any sort of narcotics trafficking without strong information sharing. And we spend a lot of money on that, and it's money that we should be spending.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Justine.
Thank you, Chairman Rogers. Thank you to our ranking members. Welcome, Acting Attorney General.
On a side note, speaking about drugs and substance abuse and whatnot, I don't know if you guys have heard or been following. There's this skater. His name's Chad Caruso, and he finally made it to his destination, but his objective was to skate across America from coast to coast on a skateboard. And he just finished his journey, and it took him like 37 days. He left like last month on the 1st from Venice, and he actually just finished his journey yesterday in Jacksonville. And but yeah, that dude did more than Trump has ever done to help people with substance abuse, because his whole skate mission was to raise awareness and money for like a program to like help people that are addicted to like substance abuse. But yeah, if anyone's interested, check out Chad Caruso.
I want to speak about justice for the Epstein victims and survivors. And I'm going to begin with the closing words of Virginia Roberts Giuffre in her book. It's literally the last paragraph. She writes, "I hope for a world in which predators are punished, not protected. Victims are treated with compassion, not shamed, and powerful people face the same consequences as anyone else. I yearn too for a world in which the perpetrators face more shame than their victims do, and where anyone who's been trafficked can confront their abusers when they are ready, no matter how much time has passed. We don't live in this world yet. I mean, seriously, where are those videotapes the FBI confiscated from Epstein's houses? And why haven't they led to..."
Oh, all right, Living Dead Girl, thanks for that information. Yeah, I remember I would see that DARE slogan and all the LAPD cop cars, like throughout the 90s and the 2000s. And now that I think about it, yeah, I guess they did get rid of that program. I'm gonna have to read up on it, see what happened.
More abusers. That's from Virginia. It was printed, as you know, posthumously after her death. Mr. Blanche, you and I had a chance a couple of weeks ago at the Department of Justice to speak about these cases. We discussed three things in connection with this monstrous decades-long crime spree. Number one, your failure to fully redact survivor information. Number two, your failure to follow the law and release the remaining files. And number 3, your refusal to prosecute anybody else. Mr. Blanche, let's continue that inane conversation, but this time it's public. This time, and more importantly, it's under oath. You're speaking to Congress. So let's get into it. When will you comply with the law and release all of the files?
As I said to you when we spoke before, we have complied with the law.
All right, so finally somebody asked $1 million question to Todd Blanche, like, yo, what's up with the MFing files, yo?
There are 3 million more documents, and you know what you said to me? They're all duplicative, and they include another guy named Epstein.
No, I didn't
Nobody's
say
buying. That's
I did
what you
not
said.
say that.
That's what you said.
So look,
Reclaiming my
can I
time.
answer? Can I answer the question?
No, I
Okay.
just gave you the answer you gave me.
No.
No, actually, it's my time, Mr. Chairman. I think those are the rules of this committee. I told him the answer he gave me, and now in public he's trying to say something else. Please stop the clock. Can I get that time back? May I have 20 seconds back, Mr. Chairman? Thank you. I very much appreciate that. Mr. Blanche.
You don't want me to answer the question.
Mr. Blanche, as you know, I visited DOJ 3 times for as much as 10 hours, and I'll be going back. Does the
Popcorn time.
Epstein File Transparency Act say that the files should be available to members of Congress with a minder at DOJ where you're in a secure room, you can't write on any of the binders, you can take your own notes? Is that what the Transparency Act says?
It doesn't require we allow you to come to DOJ at all. We did that on our own.
What does it say in terms of transparency? It says that they should be made publicly available.
And they
Am
were.
Am I correct?
And they
Publicly
were.
available.
And they were.
Oh, well, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Time of the gentlelady has expired.
I beg your pardon.
Oh shit, they cut her off.
I'd actually like to get 20 seconds back. How do I get cut off 2 minutes into this?
2 minutes and
Time of the gentlelady has expired.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Chairman. What rules are we operating under? Because
Wow. So she's supposed to be able to speak for 5 minutes, and they cut her off at 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Oh my goodness, they're really covering up the Epstein files.
a little bit of heat for not prosecuting anyone in these monstrous crimes? I've been in the room. I have been there. This is what I had to do, to transcribe, to show what is true. What is true is that the president has lied about being on Epstein's plane, and the unredacted files prove that. There's a lot in here. I am shocked at this. There's also this set of files in the file. This is investigation into the potential co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein. I almost used up all the blank ink in the hallway because it's all covered up. It's all covered up. The American people are not stupid. They know that when members of Congress have to go in and actually unredact, try to find the truth for these victims, something is corrupt. Something is corrosive. You were paid $10 million to represent the president. You hang a 30-foot banner of the president's menacing face over the entrance to the Department of Justice. You said that if you were terminated or not moved forward as Attorney General, you would say to the president, "I love you, sir." So I have one question for you. Is your obligation to the victims and survivors of Epstein's heinous crimes and all his perpetrators, or is your first obligation to the President of the United States?
So without a doubt, we want to bring justice to every victim.
When will you bring that justice?
Can I please finish?
Excuse me.
Can I finish?
It's been decades. When will you bring the justice?
So as I was saying,
When will you prosecute?
Oh.
And who will you prosecute?
Can I
Please
speak?
allow the witness to
You
answer.
told me in our
So I'll tell
conversation,
you,
you
so
blamed the victim.
Every victim
Let the record
Mr.
reflect,
Epstein
you told me
of
that the victims didn't give good names.
let me be crystal clear that this Department of Justice will always protect victims and will always prosecute anybody we can. Okay, full stop, no ifs, ands, or buts. Okay, what you are showing in a game of showmanship are redactions because of victims, because that prosecution memorandum
Perpetrators.
talks about. Excuse me.
Perpetrators too.
How do you know that? Go ahead.
Talk to
Exactly. So
Talk to the victims.
they're victims' names, which we are required to redact, required by law to redact, which we did. Okay, so I take
Mr.
umbrage
Chairman, I
to the
realize
idea.
I'm over time. Thank you for that indulgence. I want to ask for unanimous consent to enter records onto the record. May I do that now?
Without objection.
Thank you. The
Time
first,
of the gentlelady has expired. Mr. Alford,
I would like to enter these records. May I please list what they are, sir?
you've had your chance. Mr. Alford,
You're denying me the chance to list what these records are?
Mr. Alford,
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Attorney General, would you like to respond?
Wow, they didn't even accept her records. That's like the first time I've ever seen that in all these hearings. Yeah, they're really covering up the Epstein files.
These allegations.
Well, look, I think that the idea that this department,
I mean, it checks out. It makes sense. They're just like the whole MAGA, like everyone in that MAGA, Donald Trump's inner circle, all those MAGAs, they're all just a bunch of weirdos.
does not stand up to victims and does not do everything we can, stand up for victims rather, do everything we can to prosecute anybody who harms our most vulnerable, ignores the facts. We will always protect victims. We have said from the beginning, anybody, whether it's their lawyer, whether it's a victim who wants to meet with the FBI or who has information, they don't have to come in. They can use their lawyers, they can use nonprofit groups. I've spoken to nonprofit groups. My leadership team has spoken to nonprofit groups and victims. When we released the Epstein files earlier this year, I spent the whole weekend on the phone with many of Epstein's victims' lawyers, and Director Patel has said the same thing. And so I will say again, if there is a lawyer or a victim who has information, please come forward. And it doesn't mean coming forward to a congressman's office. It means coming forward to the FBI. And if there's nervousness or if there's something that it's a difficult thing to do, we will work with you. That's what we do. That's what we said for months and months, and it remains as true today as it was the first time we said.
I had no intention of asking about Epstein, but there were 3 allegations made of failure to fully redact victims' names. Have you?
That MAGA talking point that Trump brought Epstein down, such a joke. You guys, hey, MAGA cult members, you guys don't remember the birthday card that Trump sent to Epstein?
So we were required by law to redact victims' names. We did not get to choose victims. So what
Hey, MAGA cult members, how do you guys feel about Coward Nutlick lying under oath, and then he finally admits that he did go to Epstein Island and have lunch with Epstein and hang out and just do who knows what. And how do you feel about Coward Nutlick, now that you know all that, being one of Donald Trump's right-hand men?
us in New York was if somebody identified themselves as a victim, we had to redact that. And that's what we did. And
Has there been a failure to prosecute perpetrators?
Never. And if we learn of a bad guy that we can prosecute today, we will prosecute him today.
Has there been a failure to release all the files?
No. So we reviewed more than enough. We over-collected on purpose to make sure we could comply with the law. And so necessarily by over-collecting, some of the materials we collected were not responsive. They had nothing to do with the Epstein files or the Transparency Act.
I want to dramatically shift gears now and talk about what's going on in New Jersey. Our federal officers are being assaulted by people who are funded, we believe, from outside sources. One man was arrested recently, death threats on ICE officers. It's no wonder they don't want to wear masks. I mean, they want to wear masks to protect their identity, to protect their families, to protect their lives while they're trying to deport criminally illegal aliens and protect this detention center, which is legally there. What is going on in America? Who is funding these?
What a load of crap! They're wearing masks because they want to hide their crimes because they're violating everyone's civil rights, and they're already a bunch of convicted criminals that they hired to do all that work. And plus, no police officers or judges, all these public servants, they don't wear masks. So yeah, these Gestapo goons wearing masks, they just do it to cover their identities because they're a bunch of crooks.
people, Antifa and these other groups that are causing these issues, criminals that are causing chaos in our country. And what is the Department of Justice doing?
Antifa. I guess MAGA cult members are pro-Tifa.
Thank you for that question. Look, if you look at the people who were arrested in New Jersey, very few of them were from New Jersey. There was one that was from as far away as Portland. There were a ton from New York, a ton from further out west. And so you do have a concerted effort by national organizations to disrupt and really just try to create chaos, because you also have a ICE run facility that is completely compliant with the law. And the men and women that are defending that facility are just doing their jobs. And what we saw until earlier this week was unfortunately a local government didn't let their cops come and help, even though I'm sure every one of those cops would have loved to. And so until we had that happen, there was chaos, but we have it under control. And we will always defend ICE. We will always prosecute anybody who touches an ICE officer, and that's what we can do.
Mr. Attorney General, that is great. How is the investigation going into finding out this illegal funding of these illegal groups that are committing illegal activities?
It's we have multiple investigations and they're ongoing, and we will find them.
And do what?
Well, prosecute them, because what they're doing is absolutely a violation of the law. So the money they're raising is being used for, without a doubt, they're not telling the IRS, for example, that they're going to spend their money on umbrellas to hand out at riots, right? And so that's the kind of information that they're lying about and that they're raising money to do. And
there hasn't been any riots since, I don't know, I guess like George Floyd, since like 2020.
Money from overseas coming in, or is this funded within our borders?
I think both. Our investigation to date is ongoing. But certainly a lot of it's from in our borders. A lot of it, unfortunately, is from here. But there's no doubt that there's also foreign funding involved.
Well, thank you for the work you're doing. And Mr. Chair, I'll yield back 15 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Alford. Mr. Fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General, welcome. I want to discuss a troubling development in my home state of Virginia and in states across the country, and that's crimes committed by illegal immigrants who are released back into communities like Virginia to continue to commit crimes, not deported to their countries of origin. For years, under the leadership of Governor Glenn Youngkin, Virginia law enforcement agencies partnered with the federal government under a 287G agreement. These agreements allow trained law enforcement officers to work with federal immigration authorities to identify and remove illegal aliens who had already been involved in the criminal justice system. Now, Governor Spanberger has chosen to revoke these agreements and move.
Nobody's attacking anyone. It's a bunch of fake news made up by Donald Trump to fearmonger all his MAGA cult members.
Virginia in the direction of a sanctuary commonwealth. At a time when Americans are demanding secure borders and safer communities, Virginia is walking away from one of the most effective cooperative tools available to law enforcement. The result is that dangerous individuals who could have been transferred to federal custody may instead be released back into the communities. And we heard from the inept Commonwealth's attorney of Fairfax County, Steve Descano, in Judiciary Committee 2 weeks ago, who was confronted with crime after crime committed by illegal immigrants who were released back into.
Hey, what's up, JFO? Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, yep. Coward Nutlick was begging to go to that island. Same with Elon Musk.
Because they were not prosecuted or held to account by his office. So from the DOJ's perspective, does this lack of cooperation between federal government and state law enforcement agencies make it more difficult to identify and remove criminal aliens?
I mean, more difficult and a lot less safe. It puts everybody at danger, not only the community, but the federal law enforcement that have to then go and arrest the person who should have been just picked up. And
it's funny how like the MAGA cult members, one of their talking points is like, Democrats or liberals don't want illegals to go back. But then on the other hand, they'll be saying, but Obama deported 30 million people. it's like, okay, which one is it? Like, you know, if Obama deported 30 million people, that means Democrats want illegals to go back. Just a giant, the great big contradiction is what it is. The great big contradiction these MAGA cult members are suffering from.
When they were there. And the best way to know that it's not working is because when you go to the jurisdictions where it does work, where there is law enforcement working, local law enforcement working with the federal government, it's safer, it's efficient, and it complies with all the laws. And so the best way to know that which way works is to just do a compare and contrast.
One of the things.
All right, for sure. Yeah. Have a good one. Thanks for tapping in, hanging out. See you soon, hopefully.
In this committee is the power of the purse, and there's a lot of money flowing through COPS grants and other federal support for our local law enforcement agencies. We support our local law enforcement agencies. We stand with our men and women in law enforcement. We back the blue. But in those jurisdictions where you see a refusal,
there wasn't any riots in New Jersey. That was state-sanctioned terrorism by the government.
To enter into these types of 287G agreements, could it be encouraged through the tying of these COPS grants to these 287G agreements? Could that be a productive use of the funds?
Yes, and look, the problem is, or the challenge is that we love our cops and we want them to have funding, and it's usually not them. It's usually the leadership in the local jurisdictions. And so we do want to be sensitive to taking away the money that they need because it's not their fault. But yes, the power of the purse is exactly that. It's power.
Well, I'm hopeful that the legislation I've introduced, which would do just that, will move through the legislative process. I also want to discuss your department's data security program administered through the National Security Division. For years, Congress has become increasingly.
Hey, remember when Donald Trump was trying to brainwash his cult members by saying that the January 6th insurrectionists, which were pretty much Donald Trump's allies, he was trying to say they were Antifa? Oh man, what a clown show.
Foreign adversaries like the Chinese Communist Party have been acquiring vast quantities of Americans' personal information through data brokers, corporate acquisitions, commercial relationships, and other means. In the hands of a foreign adversary, this information can be used to identify intelligence targets, facilitate surveillance, support cyber operations, and strengthen artificial intelligence capabilities. The department's data security program represents an important step toward addressing these vulnerabilities and protecting Americans from exploitation by foreign adversaries. Since implementation of the program, can you answer what the DOJ has learned about?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, Donald Trump owes us Doge checks and tax tariff rebate checks.
Foreign efforts to obtain U.S. data through commercial channels?
I mean, it happens every day, and it's a constant effort by not only the Department of Justice but a lot of the federal government to combat that, because the foreign actors are spending a lot of money, a lot of resources, and they're smart to try to get our data. And so you're right, the money that we put up in these agencies, NSD and other places, it's because we have to make sure that we're not only stopping it, but also putting preventative measures in place so it's not worth it for them to try.
And has the DOJ identified any gaps in current law that make it difficult to prevent sensitive U.S. data from reaching these foreign adversaries?
I don't think gaps is the right way to say it, but I think that we need to make sure that we're constantly robust and that we remain strong in our regulatory efforts to stop it.
Thank you. Yield back.
That concludes the regular hearing. However, there is a request for a second round. The Attorney General has important matters to attend to, so we will attempt to shorten what would normally be a second round and keep it to 2 minutes per member, if that's okay with you, Ms. Ming. All right. Well, in that case, I recognize myself for 2 minutes. Let me ask you, General, about the surge operations that the department has conducted on cities across the United States. Our state and local partners have mixed feelings about the success of that program. Can you share the impact these operations have had on officer morale, for example, in large cities with historically high crime rates? And is the department planning to continue these efforts? And if so, what resources are needed to continue those efforts?
So the surges have been extraordinarily successful. From August of last year to April of this year, we directed almost $44 million and over 1,100 agents to these surge efforts. And in DC and in Memphis, you see a remarkable reduction in crime, but you also see a community that's appreciative. In this city, we work very well with local leadership, and including the mayor, because the results of the surges is exactly what you expect it to be, which is we're taking bad guys off the streets, we're letting people feel comfortable walking around, and that's the same thing.
Hey, what's up, Maid Mermaid? Even if that was the case, you still lose your argument, because that just means Obama's just more successful.
See, and in Memphis, we expect to spend another $100 million doing that over the next fiscal year because it's working, because it's a good thing to do in this country. And so we sending a lot of law enforcement into a crime-ridden area works.
Ms. Ming?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Attorney General, I want to thank you for verbally committing to not moving forward with the so-called anti-weaponization fund. I just want to make sure, are you going to issue a new memo in writing, rescinding that May 18th memo?
I'm not committing to putting anything in writing. I said it's
Nothing in
over and
writing.
over again. I mean, I don't know what the purpose of putting something in writing. I'm telling you what we're doing. Meaning, like, why do I need to put something in writing if I'm telling you what we're doing?
Well, you started it, you established it in writing, so it just makes sense to rescind it in writing. I think a lot of Americans, both sides of the aisle, are concerned about it, and it would restore a lot of trust about this issue.
Okay, I'm not committing to doing anything in writing. No.
Okay.
I mean, I'll take it under advisement.
I'm just concerned because you're not under oath, and I want to trust you and I want to believe you. We all do. But putting it in writing would settle that issue. I have 1 minute left. Still want to ask in writing, but every year the committee reports, and the joint explanatory statement accompanying the Appropriations Act direct the department to provide to the Appropriations Committee various reports on various subjects. These reports assist the committee's work and help ensure transparency and accountability. Numerous reports from your department have not yet been sent to us and are now overdue. Are you aware of this issue, and will you please work to deliver these reports to both the House and Senate Appropriations Committees?
I will.
Thank you. I yield back.
So the lady yields back. Mr. Judge Carter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This settlement that you that was entered into, that started off to be a lot of conversation about. Everybody was involved as a litigant was represented by competent lawyers.
Yes.
So this wasn't just one lawyer doing this thing. This is a whole bunch of lawyers doing this thing, right?
Yes, that's correct.
When you have a lawsuit for anything and you decide to settle it, you want to make sure nobody's coming back on the facts that lawsuit was based on and trying to go forward again. That's why you have to put something like what the lady read into the agreement. And say, now if they want to break the law past that set of facts and do it again, they're not covered and protected by that.
That's correct.
They're only protected if that's what your lawsuit was about.
Correct.
And all the lawyers signed off on it, and all the lawyers agreed for all the litigants that were involved in that case.
100%. That's
so correct. Nobody was forcing anybody without a lawyer to make a settlement. They all had a lawyer. They all probably had good lawyers. Cost a lot of money, and they settled for the facts that we have before us. You're stating that you're not going to continue the way to pay it.
Correct.
At this time or at any time for that matter.
Correct.
In your knowledge.
Correct.
I don't see where the fault is. I'll yield back.
Mr. Laurel?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just want to run through some questionable transactions. Mr. Secretary, President received a luxury jet from the Qatari government valued at hundreds of millions of dollars in apparent violation of the emoluments clause of the Constitution. Jared Kushner's real estate and financial deals with the Saudi royal family raised serious questions related to kickbacks and bribery that could be in violation of federal bribery laws and the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. White House advisor Peter Navarro, a friend of Donald Trump Jr., got the Pentagon to loan more than $600 million to Vulcan Elements, a small North Carolina startup founded just 2 years earlier. And Donald Trump Jr.'s venture capital firm has a stake in this company. Estimates of the company's valuation grew tenfold after the deal was announced. AAFS Infrastructure and Energy, which is on the cusp.
Hey, read them and weep, maggots. She's coming through with the receipts and the facts over here. Yeah. The waste, fraud, and abuse continues with the Orange Madman.
Securing a waiver, a $1 billion contract to build and operate a pipeline across the Balkans has ties to former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and the lawyer Jesse Banal that defended the president and Donald Trump Jr. against the lawsuit that sought to hold them responsible for January 6th. This company would be allowed to ship fossil gas from the United States to replace Russian fuels. My question is, and we know that the administration, you gutted the public integrity section for the last 50 years, investigated, prosecuted crime related to government integrity, and they prosecuted both Democrats and Republicans. Simple yes or no question. What I've just mentioned, do you believe that what I've talked about is enough here for the next Attorney General to open a criminal investigation? Yes or no?
No, you just read a bunch of random, unsourced news articles and reports. No, that's not the basis to open a criminal investigation. I mean, you're looking around, but it's not.
This is not the basis on which
it is not. Just reading something that's just a hypothetical off a news article, it's not.
It's not a hypothetical. It is real. Did the president get a Qatari? What? Did you read the press? Are you knowledgeable?
Not the same press you do.
Apparently not, my friend.
Promise.
Apparently not. Did the president receive a luxury jet from the Qatari government valued at hundreds of millions of dollars, which is
Yeah, Todd Blanche probably gets his news just like Donald Trump gets his news from Fox News and like Joe Rogan.
America did.
Of the emoluments clause of the Constitution.
It is not.
Wow, you do not belong in this job, Mr. Acting Attorney General. You should always recuse yourself from these issues because you are the president's lawyer. You are not the lawyer of the United. Lawyer. Yes, you are.
I'm not.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Clyde.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, Mr. Acting Attorney General, I'm sorry to hear that the weaponization fund is not moving forward. You would have my full support. When our government is weaponized so as to steal money from innocent law-abiding citizens, whether by making the process into the penalty or forcing citizens to spend their resources on legal fees for their defense or by actually seizing their bank accounts through civil asset forfeiture when there is no criminal prosecution, it is only right and fair to make these citizens whole. And as a victim myself, for which every solitary member on this committee who is 8 years or more in Congress voted for the bill that has my name on it, the federal law that has my name on it, against the IRS, people need to be made whole when the government has been weaponized against them. But what I'd like to talk to you about, other than that, is in 1873, Congress enacted the Comstock Act, 18 U.S.C. Section 1461, which prohibits the mailing of abortion-inducing materials in the United States. Although the statute has been amended numerous times, including as recently as 1994, Congress has never repealed these criminal prohibitions. And as Justice Thomas recently noted, the Comstock Act remains valid federal law and is fully enforceable. So my question to you is, how will the Department of Justice ensure that this federal law prohibiting the mailing of abortion-inducing drugs is properly enforced? And I wish I had more time to really go through this because we in the state of Georgia have a heartbeat bill, and we prohibit this type of drug, all right, inducing abortions, and yet it can come across from other states, all right, and kill innocent unborn children. How?
Why don't these like Christian nationalists, you know, TPUSA, MAGA, terrorist organization, why don't they just think of an abortion more like deporting somebody?
Department of Justice ensure that this federal law is enforced?
So that's an important law and an important question, and I will tell you that there's a lot of effort within the department, and it's not just at the Department of Justice, it's other agencies in the federal government into how the best way is to make sure that we're protecting the rights of individual Georgians and other individual states, but also the rights of every American. And you're right. I wish we had more time to discuss that because it's a complicated issue. On the first question that you asked, I could not agree with you more that this Department of Justice was weaponized, unfortunately, against many Americans, and we're trying every day to fix it. And we've made a lot of progress, but we have a lot more to do.
Well, thank you. And by the way, I had a apology for Mr. Lewis, the ranking member of that subcommittee. Y'all remember him? All right. He said, I want to apologize to you for what a piece of my government, what the IRS did to you. I wish you well. I thank you and I yield.
Robbie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask you, it's a follow-up actually to a letter that I think 57 of my colleagues and I sent. This is about the shootings of Alex Pretty and Ms. Good in Minneapolis. The issue there is the Attorney General for the state, and I think some local prosecutors have said they haven't been able to get access to the evidence related to those shootings so they can make their own independent judgments about whether they should move forward with cases or not. The letter we sent, I don't think has been answered, but are you going to be committing to sharing that information immediately to these state and local prosecutors? Why not?
That's not what we do in criminal investigations.
I disagree.
Well, I'm right, you're wrong.
Well, let me say this. Your predecessor, Murad Rosenstein, and I, when he was U.S. Attorney in Maryland, I was the state prosecutor. Yeah. We shared evidence in these kinds of cases all the time, and then we made a determination about which would go forward. But the refusal to share evidence is
no, that's not what I said. I didn't say I refused to share evidence, sir. You said,
I mean immediately.
Right, that's what I said no to.
We shared the evidence immediately, and then yes, we did.
That's not. Look,
on to the next thing. You mentioned that it's important to make sure that bad guys don't just get arrested, but they pay back their victims. And that struck me as ironic given the number of pardons that this president has issued with respect to, I'll come back to you later. Devin Archer, Sioux Nation, $60 million, $43 million in restitution was wiped away by the pardon. Carlos Watson, $36.7 million was wiped away by the restitution. The Chrisleys, $21 million was wiped away by the restitution. Mr. Schwartz, I don't remember what that number was in his particular case, but over and over again, victims have been of fraud. So they personally lost the money. It was taken out of their pockets. Issue a pardon, they don't get paid, they don't get made whole. Will you commit to trying to find a way to make those people whole who've been denied this access to the information?
As I said to you earlier, sir, the Constitution of our United States gives the president the power to pardon. That is not a decision for me to make or you to make. It's a decision for the president of the United States to make.
Can I have just one more question, Mr. Chairman? With respect to civil liability for these people, which they're not pardoned for, would you, and the Department of Justice can pursue civil remedies in cases that involve
fraud? Depends on the case, right? Depends on the case.
Well, if they've been convicted for criminal liability already, certainly they can be convicted or
it depends on what crime they were convicted of.
Well, I just read them off to you. They were fraud convictions.
You didn't read off the crimes. No, it just depends. I appreciate what you're saying, and you're right that a pardon doesn't cover civil liability.
Pursue civil liability in these cases.
I'm not going to commit to civil liability right here. No.
None of the gentlemen has expired. Mr. Strong.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Blanche, the National Children's Advocacy Center located in my district was the original model for the CAC approach.
And did you guys see the chairman's neck? Let me see what's going on here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Blanche, the National Children's Advocacy.
What you're saying, and you're right, that a pardon doesn't cover civil
Will
liability.
you pursue civil liability in these cases
I'm not
where
going
these
to commit
people have been
to
loved?
civil liability right here, no.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
All right, there it is right there. What's up with this dude's, like, Donald Trump has that same red mark. I think they really are. Yeah, because they're making measles. They're making measles and tapeworm great again. I think these MAGA politicians got a case of the measles right here.
Mr. Strong.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Blanche, the National Children's Advocacy Center located in my district was the original model for the CAC approach nationwide and continues to play a leading role in training and best practices. How does the DOJ view the role of the National Center in strengthening child advocacy centers' capacity across the country?
Yeah, look, it's extraordinarily important. That's the work that they're doing and they've done for, at least many years now is key to the partnership and the future success of making sure that they're on the right path. So look, the DOJ plays a small role in that. It doesn't play as important a role maybe as others, but that type of education and work is important.
I understand that the Victims of Child Abuse Act funded programs include the training and technical assistance for child abuse professionals grants are coming up for competition this year. How does the DOJ thinking about ensuring continuity so that the training pipelines and services are not disruptive? That goes through your form.
That's what our grant folks do very well.
So check it out, guys. There's like we wrote this hearing out. There's like 5 minutes left, so we'll just write it out to the end. And then after this, I want to check out that Thomas Massey speech where he was talking about the USS Liberty incident where I guess Israel like bombed it or something. So after this is done, we'll go check out Thomas Massey's speech. And that speech was just the other day too. So everything I'll be playing is like current stuff that happened within like last week and mostly, yeah, for sure.
So, and I definitely will happy to have my folks work with you to make sure that there's continuity there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Ms. Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the second round. I did want to explain what I held up here.
Okay.
For the viewing public, what you do as a member of Congress is you go in, you release your phone, you release anything that would have electronics, and you go in and you attempt to capture some redacted material. So I took a look at this email from Jack Goldberger, Wednesday, October 14th, 2009. The subject is Trump. It is to Jeffrey Epstein. And the language here that is not redacted reads, spoke to Alan Garten, Trump's attorney. Garten arranged a 20-minute phone conference with Trump and Brad in lieu of a deposition. Following was discussed. The blacked out box is what was discussed, a regurgitation of that. I'll read to you what I was able to see underneath. It's, as I say, it's shorthanded, it's clipped as a regurgitation of what took place. J.E. never expelled from Mar-a-Lago. No, he was not a member, may have been a guest, never asked to leave. Mark Epstein said Trump on J.E. plane. Is that true? Answer, I've been on a lot of planes, may have been on his plane, no young girls on plane. What do you know about allegations against J.E.? Only what I read in the paper. Trump ever at J.E. house? I may have been there with my wife. Any young girls there? No, may have been some children of guests, but that's it. Trump specifically asked Garten to advise us of the interview. Brad had also talked to manager of Mar-a-Lago, Bert Lemke. Lemke confirmed J.E. never asked to leave Mar-a-Lago. I say that to say what a silly exercise that members of Congress have to go through to find out what actual conversations were taking place with the president in lieu of a deposition. This has nothing to do with redacting victims' names. My only point, I don't have a question for you. My only point is you are gravely conflicted. It is so obvious you are gravely conflicted. These survivors deserve prosecutions. They deserved them years ago, and now it's in your lap, as Pam Bondi told us. They need an independent prosecutor. I hope you will do that.
So if I may briefly respond, the law, the Epstein Transparency Act requires us to redact victims. We also have other laws that apply that require us to apply other redactions. That's not my law, that's your law. And what was just read, the reason why that was redacted is because that's a privileged communication between counsel. So the fact that it was read is fine, but that wasn't redacted because there were victims' names. That was redacted for another purpose, which we're legally obligated to do.
That concludes today's hearing. I want to thank our witness, Acting Attorney General Blanche, for being here and giving us his opinion over a great stretch. Without objection, members may have 7 days to submit additional questions for the record. The committee stands adjourned.
All right, so that's the end of that hearing. Let's go check out, before I dip out, let's go check out this this Thomas Massey. Hey, there's a new Lego video. Let me see if I can find this. I'm trying to find this Thomas Massey. Here it is.
Mr. Speaker.
All right, this is Thomas Massey. This was yesterday, it came out. It's titled Thomas Massey Slams Israel for 1967 Strike on USS Liberty that claimed 34 lives.
It's my great honor, maybe one of the biggest honors of my lifetime, to stand here on the floor and do something that's 59 years overdue, to recognize the survivors and those who gave their lives on the USS Liberty 59 years ago today, when they were viciously attacked by IDF jets and also after that by torpedo boats. I'm going to tell you a little bit of their story. And there, by the way, there's at least a dozen of them here today with us. I just met with them in my office and they related this story to me. You know, it was a clear day. The USS Liberty was one of the most technologically sophisticated ships in the Navy, but it was virtually unarmed, and it was sent to observe the 6-day war going on in the Middle East between Israel and its neighbors. It arrived on June 7th, and the weather was clear. The planes came out to meet them, to investigate, and then on the next day, on June 8th, they started the day. The visibility was unlimited. The American flag was flying proudly on the USS Liberty. More planes came from Israel to surveil the boat, the ship. And they thought they were in good shape. But what happened next surprised them all. French Mirage jets showed up and for 25 minutes strafed and attacked the USS Liberty. They shot rockets. They shot 30-millimeter cannons into the hull and into the ship. They even dropped napalm on the bridge of the ship. This was an effort to kill everybody on board. There was no intention of taking prisoners. After the 25 grueling minutes of attack on this virtually unarmed ship, and they thought things were over and they could recover, the torpedo boats showed up, 3 torpedo boats. They launched 4 torpedoes. One of them hit the hull of the USS Liberty and killed 25 people instantly. It blew a 40-foot by 40-foot hole in the side of this ship. They were intent on sinking it, but they were also intent on not having a single survivor. According to eyewitness accounts, the Israelis machine gunned the lifeboats that they put down. They machine gunned the firefighters who were on the deck. They were bringing the wounded and the dead to the mess hall to triage them. They had one doctor who was trying to help them all, put a few stitches in. It was harrowing, and it's amazing. If not for that crew, that boat would have sunk that day. But it still wasn't over. Helicopters showed up, combat helicopters. And the USS Liberty, even though their signals were being jammed by the Israelis, got a signal out. And there were ships that tried to respond. The USS Saratoga, the USS America sent planes. Both of them sent planes to help the USS Liberty. And something happened that's never happened before. A ship under attack, the planes were recalled. This has never happened before. And they sat there for 17 hours. 34 dead, 174 wounded out of 294 crew members. That's over 70% casualty rate, unheard of. The Israelis were intent on leaving no survivor. And what about our own military? Why did they not send anybody for 17 hours to help these men? So what really happened? You know, the official reports say that it was a case of mistaken identity. But if you listen to Dean Rusk, former Secretary of State, Richard Helms, CIA Director, Bobby Ray Inman, head of the NSA, Captain Ward Boston, who was the chief counsel of the Court of Inquiry. If you listen to Admiral Moore, who served in Pearl Harbor, Midway, commanded both the Atlantic and Pacific Fleet, and was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, none of these distinguished men think this was an accident. They think it was intentional murder by the country of Israel, either as a false flag operation or because they simply didn't want anybody observing what they were doing that day. Well, I've got a call to action for everybody here. Honor these individuals. Quit ignoring that they exist. Go to their website, ussliberty.org. Support them. And while they're still alive, they need closure. Let's give them closure. Let's have an investigation. Let's pass a resolution honoring them. It's long overdue. And then they can have their justice. With that, I yield back. And I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the
All right, so that's Thomas Massey right there. Yeah, Thomas Massey's a solid dude. That's why Trump hates him so much. Because he has integrity, unlike the Orange Man. All right, so that was Massey yesterday. Let's go check out some other stuff. Let's go check out let's see what else we got here. Trump gets booed at the NBA Finals.
Cut and rant.
Oh yeah, the Trump interview he had with Beat the Press. What a big baby. You can check out Dick Durbin lambast ICE as Republicans. But I kind of want to check out so I guess Pete Hegseth did this like racist like KKK speech, like Nazi speech over in France, and he got banned for life. So let's go check out this Pete Kegsbreth speech that he just did. All right, so
Peter B. Hegseth, Secretary of War.
So this just came out.
Remarks.
This just came out 3 days ago.
Peter B.
All right, so this is titled Hegseth honors war veterans on D-Day anniversary. Let's check out Pete Kegsbreth's speech.
Secrétaire d'État à la guerre des États-Unis d'Amérique à prendre la parole. The Honorable Peter B. Hegseth, Secretary of War of the United States of America, will now deliver his remarks.
Well, Minister, Ambassador Kushner, Mr. Rose, Chairman Kane, distinguished guests, and most importantly, our veterans. Thank you for being here to commemorate the 82nd anniversary, 82 years young of D-Day. God bless you all. It is a profound privilege to be with you today on these hallowed grounds. This is not merely a resting place. It is a monument to the unyielding spirit of the American warrior, a testament to the supreme sacrifices our warriors made to liberate an entire continent from the grip of tyranny. We remain ever grateful to the French government, our ally for 250 years, for dedicating this land to our fallen. For every American who visits, it is uniquely stirring to see the stars and stripes proudly flying here in eternal vigil over the thousands of crosses and stars. As a former superintendent of this cemetery once said, looking over the graves, there they are, still serving their country. 82 years ago today, the survival of Western civilization hung in the balance. Dark forces had swept across Europe. Hitler boasted that his Atlantic Wall was impenetrable. But our enemy made a fatal miscalculation. They underestimated the unbreakable will of the American fighting man. The task was daunting. A frontal assault across the churning English Channel, directly into beaches and cliffs fortified with iron, concrete, and heavy artillery. An impossible mission? A suicidal mission? The mission of free men, freedom's only hope, no turning back. Alongside the brave forces of Great Britain, Canada, France, Norway, Poland, and our other capable and steadfast allies, the United States military spearheaded a great crusade to shatter the Nazi war machine and liberate a continent. Our troops carried with them the inspiring words of General Eisenhower, but more importantly, they carried the hopes and the prayers of a free world. They embarked into the dark, choppy waters, knowing that many would not return home. As the ambassador said, ordinary men, extraordinary courage. Like American patriots throughout our history, from Lexington to Gettysburg, they relied on one another, trusting their brothers and their cause. Before dawn, American paratroopers and gliders plunged into the abyss, lit only by enemy tracer fire. Chaotic drops and fierce resistance, they adapted, they rallied, and they fought. A triumph of American ingenuity and initiative over the rigid, mechanized thinking of the enemy. We retain that advantage still today. Sergeant William Ashbrook of the 101st Airborne Screaming Eagles looked out of his plane to the sight below, saying, "There were so many boats in the channel," he said, "that it seemed as if you could step out of the plane and walk to France on top of them." Speed and scale only the American war machine could produce, and we are producing again today. May we learn from this past. Later that Tuesday morning, the greatest amphibious assault in human history was unleashed. Our American warriors set out to take Omaha and Utah beaches. They rode in Higgins boats, a masterstroke of American engineering manufactured by the blue-collar grit of 20,000 workers in New Orleans. The ramps of those boats dropped, and our men hurled themselves into the waves and onto the blood-stained sand. The sheer courage that it took to charge into that hailstorm of machine gun fire and artillery, almost unfathomable. I tell my kids who join us today, and they can barely relate, it barely computes. Who could? Our forefathers did. What those men did here, we ask ourselves, could we? And may we always ask. The first waves of soldiers took devastating casualties, thousands of our absolute best cut down. But the American warfighter never quit. Fueled by an unwavering love of country and the men beside them, they put...
Oh, yeah. Hey, what's up, Rock? That's hilarious. They did do a Pulp Fiction speech.
forward. They chose to face death rather than surrender or quit. And as they fought, inch by bloody inch, the Atlantic Wall crumbled. They were indeed the greatest generation. Farm boys from the heartland and city dwellers from the coasts, teachers and shopkeepers. The Americans buried here are our very best. Full stop. War reveals the true character of a nation and her men. The courage of the men who stormed these beaches is the courage that defines the United States of America. May it always, may we earn it. And remember what they did here. The souls here earned it. And we are blessed to have a number of such warriors in our presence again today. They are a living embodiment of the warrior ethos we today revive at the Department of War. To the veterans here today who served in France and around the globe, gentlemen, we love you. We owe you a debt of gratitude we can never repay. A grateful nation honors your service and your historic bravery. June 6th, 1944, turned the tide of history. Extraordinary Americans, allied courage, meticulous planning, the blood of our heroes, the Axis powers were doomed, the world saved. Without Operation Overlord, we would not have the free world we know today. Together with our allies, America saved Western civilization. This day, an annual reminder of the heavy cost of freedom, but also a reminder as we look out at those crosses of what it takes. And we ask ourselves, again, do we have it? Today, as we face an increasingly complex threat environment, we apply the lessons from 82 years ago, learned on these beaches. Strong allies, each fully committed to doing their part, win wars. The men buried here fought in a warfighting alliance where every partner brought its full measure of industry, courage, and sacrifice. Not empty slogans, not lavish summits, not communiques. Real allies doing real things, taking real losses for a shared cause worth fighting and dying for. Each nation pulled its weight. Each nation bled. America will lead, and we must. But capable allies must be right there with us, shoulder to shoulder, in the breach, when it matters.
Man, this Fox News correspondent is so cringe.
In the years since these beaches, much of the West, in some places, in some quarters, and in some capitals, grew comfortable. We forgot that freedom is not free. We forgot that peace is not wished into being. It is bought with purpose, with honor, and with strength. The men who landed on these beaches knew this. The question we ask ourselves is, do we? It's past time we remember what they knew. Their legacy demands far more than quiet reflection. It requires our active vigilance. Sadly, today, different European beaches are stormed by different dangerous ideologies. beaches in Spain and Italy and Greece and Bulgaria. Boats and men arrive. When will European capitals do something about that invasion? Or is it too late? I pray not, and I believe not. The men who fought and died here restored freedom to Europe. That freedom must be maintained by this generation of leaders and warfighters, or what they fought for was merely temporary. As our great president Ronald Reagan once said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. You don't pass it to the next generation in the bloodstream. It must be defended by each and every generation. We stand by our allies, and we expect our allies capable and ready to stand alongside us. The heroes of 1944 did that, and may we. Peace is secured only through strength.
I'm starting to think that, because he's obviously reading from a script. So I'm starting to think that Stephen Miller wrote this. What do you guys think? You guys think Stephen Miller is the brains behind this speech right here?
And its strength on both sides of the Atlantic, fortified by readiness, shared military capabilities, and an unwavering political will. Our world is safer and more prosperous when the United States of America and our allies are strong, free, and unapologetic in defense of our Western tradition of freedom. That is June 6th. That is 1944. That is D-Day. So let us here resolve the formidable alliance forged in the crucible of World War II will remain ready, will rebuild, and will recommit. And in doing that, we truly commemorate the men of D-Day. And we place them, all of them, in the hands of Almighty God. In fact, from my devotions just this very morning, Psalm 20, verse 7. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. May the Lord our God bless our warriors. May the Lord our God bless the enduring 250-year friendship between our two great republics. And may the Lord our God forever bless.
Oh, man. So that was Pete Hegseth's speech right there. Sounds like he's trying to, instead of paying respects to all the, to all the people that lost their lives on D-Day. Sounds like he was trying to tell these other countries to go fight in Iran with us in their illegal war in Iran. All right, let's go see what else we got in the queue here. Let's see here. Check out another video. Why the hell not?
Peter B. Hegseth, Secretary.
All right, so we just checked out that Pete Hegseth one. Let's go see what's up with Dick Durbin.
Martinez. On a Saturday morning.
All right, so this was yesterday too from the House floor right here, or the Senate floor. This is titled Dick Durbin Lambast ICE as Republicans Promote Reconciliation Budget Bill. I guess they passed that bill though.
Last October, Miss Martinez decided she had some spare clothes that she was going to take to her church to give to people who needed clothing. She got in her car on Kedzie Avenue and was driving along when she ran into a group of ICE agents who stopped her. She's Hispanic and appears to be Hispanic, and they decided to question whether or not she was in America illegally. She'd committed no crime, violated no law. She was just driving looking Hispanic, which was enough for them. Before it was all over, she was driving away from the scene and was shot 5 times by the ICE agents. How this woman survived, I'll never know, but she did. And of course, she had to go through a lot of hospitalization and a lot of trouble. But she insisted to the ICE agents that she'd never violated the law. And when it was all over, they sought her out at a hospital and arrested her. And then within days or weeks, dropped all charges. They argued in the original charge that her car had crashed into one of the ICE agents' cars, and therefore she had committed a criminal act. When it was all over, that car was removed from the scene and never produced again. They took it to New England, for goodness sakes, from Chicago, so that no one could actually look to see if there was any damage on it. There wasn't. Irma Martinez survived. It was nothing short of a miracle. She was swept up into this hysteria that President Trump started at his rallies, when he would get up and say over and over again, we got to stop these rapists and murderers and terrorists and the criminally insane and child predators who came across the border under the Biden administration. We're going to get them, and we're going to send in the people to make sure that happens. In came the ICE agents. Did you happen to watch what happened in Minnesota? Did you notice the two innocent individuals who were protesting, for sure, but were not violating the law, were shot down and killed in Minneapolis? That's what's happened here and what's led to what the Republican leader just described. The difference between Democrats here, Republicans there, about how we should handle this issue. Let me say here again what I've said many times. I was chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee and now the ranking Democrat. Immigration is one of our issues, and here's what I think is the bottom line. I feel everyone agrees with. I hope they do. The bottom line is this. We should never knowingly allow a dangerous person to come into this country. Short declarative sentence. Never knowingly allow a dangerous person to come into this country. Second, if someone is in this country and wants to stay, wants any kind of legal status, and commits a dangerous crime, they're gone. No ifs, ands, or buts, you're gone. Third point, we need an orderly process at our border. We cannot accept all of the people in the world who want to immigrate to the United States at this moment. There has to be an orderly process. Those, I think, are the three basic principles that most Americans agree on. Some will disagree. But I come to this issue with a personal agenda. My mother was an immigrant to this country. She was brought here at the age of 2. Hers was a poor family from Lithuania that came to the land of opportunity, East St. Louis, Illinois, where I was born and raised. My grandfather worked jobs that required manual labor, as immigrants do. They took jobs other people wouldn't consider. And here, the next generation produces a grandson who was elected to the United States Senate. That's my story. That's my family's story. That's America's story. We are a nation of immigrants. Some brought here involuntarily, some came here voluntarily. And it's made us a great nation, and I'm proud of it. In my office, just a few steps from here, is my mother's naturalization certificate by my desk. I want everyone who comes to my office to know I am a proud son of an immigrant. I don't believe immigrants are inherently evil or bad. I think just the opposite. They are people who come here and work themselves to death so that their kids have a better life. We have now reached a mindset in this country that anyone who wants to come in here is suspected of a crime or dangerous conduct. We should do a background check, for sure. But listen to what happened. I've been in the Senate for a number of years, and 20 years ago, I introduced a bill called the DREAM Act. The DREAM Act basically said, if you are brought to the United States as a child, grow up in the United States and have nothing serious in your background that raises any question, if you went to that school every day and pledged allegiance to that flag, believing you were part of America, you deserve a chance to earn your pathway to citizenship. That's what the DREAM Act said. Lucky for me, one of my colleagues in the Senate by the name of Barack Obama was a co-sponsor of my bill. Turns out he got a promotion from the Senate and became president of the United States. And I wrote him a letter co-signed by Senator Richard Lugar, Republican of Indiana, asking him by executive order to try to create a mechanism like the DREAM Act that gave these kids brought to America a chance to earn their way to citizenship. He came up with something called DACA. And under DACA, these young people, if they would step forward and identify themselves to the government, they're undocumented. If they will identify them,
isn't Barron Trump a DACA kid?
To the government, if they were brought here as children, we'd give them a chance. But the chance was simply this: you can legally work in the United States and you won't be deported. Every 2 years, you have to apply for DACA again, every 2 years. Pay a $600 fee every 2 years and go through a lengthy criminal background check. If you pass it, you get DACA for another 2 years. 980,000 young people step forward in the United States to sign up for DACA. How are we doing with these people with DACA? Pretty good. They're teachers, they're nurses, they're doctors, they're policemen, they're serving in our military. They are proving the point that they wanted to make. They love this country. They believe they're part of this country. They're not the problem. They've never been the problem. So what is the Trump administration doing to them? Denying them an opportunity to sign up for another 2 years. Their time is up. They're ready to do it, and they're holding them back. And sadly, they are deporting these young people who've done nothing wrong except try to prove themselves as to be loyal Americans. So when you look at the environment here created by the Trump administration on the issue of immigration, you see overwhelmingly that you got to listen to the whole.
Hey, what's up, Wolfgang? Well, with the name like Wolfgang, I'm gonna take a wild guess. And you like food, like Wolfgang Puck, like the chef, Wolfgang. Well, since immigrants never did anything for you, I have a suggestion for you. So you're no longer allowed to eat any ethnic food, okay? No Italian food, no Mexican food, no Chinese food, no Indian food, no Japanese food. All you can do is just stick to Oscar Mayer Wiener hot dogs, Lay's potato chips, and Budweiser.
Of every 7 people who are arrested and deported by ICE under the Trump administration, out of every 7, 6 of them have no criminal records. They're not the rapists and the murderers and the terrorists. They're people who live next door to you. They go to the same church you go to. They're the ones who just took care of your sale at the convenience store. They're doing their thing in America and they're not breaking any laws. And the Trump administration has said they still have to be deported. That, I think, is too much. And when it comes to this debate over funding ICE, what the Republican leader, and he is my friend, John Thune is my friend from South Dakota. We disagree on a lot of politics. I respect him as a person. We disagree on this issue. And when he talks about these individuals who are involved with the ICE agents and Border Patrol and the such, and how they need to be funded, what he doesn't mention is we've already funded them for this year and last year. And do you know what the funding level is for those agencies? It is more than the appropriation for the United States Marine Corps. More than the appropriation for the United States Marine Corps for these ICE agents who insist on wearing masks and don't want to be held responsible for what they're doing in the streets of Chicago and Minnesota and other places. I think it is reasonable to say to them, you should be held to the same standards as any law enforcement official in America. My state troopers in Illinois don't wear masks. The sheriff's deputies don't wear masks. The policemen in Chicago don't wear masks. They wear video cameras, which we are insisting that these ICE agents also carry. They have their names above their badges so that you know who they are and can hold them responsible for any misconduct. It's not unreasonable to do this. The Republicans say no, we'll make the rules. You probably saw, maybe you did, it was a Chicago occurrence and we all saw it. When they broke down the door of a man's home and went in and said, you're undocumented, we're going to deport you. They dragged him out and he was wearing a bathrobe. They took him out of the shower. It took 2 or 3 days to finally square it away. He was an American citizen.
Look at the big brains on Wolfgang over here. He's so racist that he figured out how to get his racist views across bypassing the algorithm.
At the wrong house. They had no warrant to tear down his front door. They did it anyway. That sort of thing should stop. ICE agents should play by the same rules as policemen, professional law enforcement all across America. That's what we feel on the Democratic side.
All right. Well, I never deport anybody really, but sounds like Wolfgang's about to get deported to back to Jonestown. But you know what? I'll leave you out there. That way everyone can see how ignorant you are.
We're getting nowhere on that issue on the Republican side. So I think the bottom line is this. We want a safe country, but we also have values. We don't want to mistreat people who are doing a good job in their lives and serving us in very important ways. I think about my state of Illinois and most other states, and we have a real serious problem finding caregivers. Caregivers in daycare centers for children, for disabled people, and certainly for our parents and grandparents who are in nursing homes and places. Who are those caregivers? Go in and take a look. 40% of them are immigrants. They're the ones who make sure that your mom and your grandmother are treated with respect and have a chance for decent human treatment during the course of a day. We want them gone. Who's going to take their place? We know better. These are tough jobs. They don't pay an awful lot of money. These folks deserve a lot more than they're currently being paid. But the reality is immigrants are critically important. The Farm Bureau is a very conservative organization in my state of Illinois. Politically, I know they're on the other side for most issues from me, but I always welcome them each year to hear what they have to say. They came to see me recently and talked about farm labor, migrant farm labor. There was a lady who had an orchard in southern Illinois. It's pretty well known for peaches and apples and the like. And she said, Senator, I can't get the local high school kids to take any job in my orchard. I can't even get them to go to the fruit stand, and I put in an air conditioner to sell fruit to people who drive by. I have to deal, if I'm going to deal with anybody, with migrant labor. People that I've known and worked for me for years. Now they're afraid to come to the United States. Will you help me? And I said, I'll try to help you if I can. But the bottom line is they're scared. They're frightened of what's going to happen to them if they come to the United States. Is that a healthy thing? This lady said, I'm not going to be able to keep this orchard for another year or two if I can't get workers to pick the fruit, to sell the fruit as part of the operation. A lady from a dairy farm in northern Illinois, hundreds of miles away, same story. She said, we don't have enough.
I mean, that's some hard work right there, you know, like being out there in the fields all day, you know, picking fruit. Like, honestly, if somebody were to like offer me like, hey, like, you know, work full time, 40 hours, you know, $50, like $100 an hour, pick some fruit all day. I'll probably, I wouldn't even want to do it for that. It's like, that's some backbreaking work right there. And those dudes are good at it that do it. But I just paid $10 the other day so under Trump, 2 pounds of grapes is $10 now because of Trump.
We used to have a lot of kids in dairy farm families. We don't have enough kids anymore. We need migrant labor to come in and help us on the farm. That's part of America. It's a job that most people don't jump to take, but it's an important job, an important part of our future. So I would just say that to my friend, Senator from South Dakota, we ought to be able to work this out, don't you think? It seems to me if we're reasonable. There are people like Steve Miller, who works in the White House and advises the president. He doesn't like immigrants. I know Mr. Miller. I've worked on the other side of the table from him for a long time. I know what his values are. He just doesn't like them. And he's pretty clear about that. And he inspires a lot of the conduct coming out of the White House. But there are others sitting on the other side of the aisle, Republican side, who I know feel differently, who would be willing to sit down and work. Is it possible for a partisan United States Senate to write a comprehensive immigration bill that both sides agree on? The answer is clearly yes. There were 8 of us, 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans. I was on the Democratic side with Schumer, a couple other senators, and then on the Republican side, it was led by John McCain. And we put together a comprehensive immigration bill and brought it to the floor, Democrats and Republicans, and passed it with over 60 votes. It can be done, but you've got to have people who are willing to sit down and say, let's be honest about it. Keep the bad guys out, but give those DACA kids, for example, a chance to be part of America's future. That's where I think is the middle ground that most Americans would agree on. And it's still something that I think we should aspire to. I don't know where we're going next on this immigration matter, but I worry about what's going to happen to a lot of people that I represent in Chicago. They're so frightened in the Hispanic communities of Chicago, they've stopped going to church. Some won't send their kids to school. They're just afraid of what's going to happen. Somebody's going to be arrested, somebody will be deported, or like Miramar Martinez, God forbid, be shot on the street because they look too Hispanic. That's the reality of where we are today. We are a better nation than that. We can do a better job than that. We can't leave the debate where it is as to who's in favor of law enforcement and who isn't. I'm in favor of law enforcement. I certainly was in favor of January 6th when the insurrectionists mobbed this Capitol and ran us out that door of the Senate because they were coming into this chamber, rifling through our desk, aping for cameras. That was the reality. They attacked the law enforcement in this building that protected all of you, still protects you to this minute. It protects me and everyone else who works here, the Capitol Hill Police. 140 of them were victimized by those insurrectionists. Some people are trying to rewrite history and say this didn't happen. They got a problem. It's called videotape. Videotape tells the story and we all saw it. So let's respect law enforcement for the job they're doing. Let's not give them impossible tasks. Let's don't ask them to wear masks, for goodness sakes, so that people don't know who they are. America is better than that. Mr. President, I have a statement for the record, but I didn't quite get to it. So I ask unanimous consent to put this statement in the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
All right, so that was Dick Durbin right there from the Senate floor yesterday. Let's freestyle it. See what else we got in the queue here. Oh, you know what? There was something that I've been wanting to see that I didn't get to check out. It's it was Marco Rubio, because I watched the Marco Rubio hearings the other day. But Moskowitz was grilling him. I didn't get to see that part. I want to see Moskowitz grilling Marco Rubio. Let's go see if we can find it. Or you know what? Let's check out Jamie Raskin real quick.
Raskin, you're recognized.
Chairman Fox, thank you very much, and Representative Scanlon.
All right, so this is Jamie Raskin from yesterday. This is titled "Shot Dead American Citizens Without Any Rational Justification at All." Jamie Raskin. All right, let's check this out.
Members of the committee, last month the president stated the major theme of his administration when he said, "I don't think about Americans' financial situation, not even a little bit." Hey, no kidding. Gas is now over $4.25 a gallon. It's up by 38%. Young people can't afford to get their own apartments. Millions of people can't afford health care and have to choose between paying for utilities and groceries. But our president, who has made more than $5 billion since his inauguration on crypto scams, pardon payoffs, and the nonstop flow of foreign government emoluments, cannot be bothered to pay any attention to his own campaign promise to lower prices starting on day one. He now calls affordability a Democrat hoax, but he's focused like a laser beam on getting $1 billion for his golden ballroom, gilding the Oval Office, and building his golden arc to Trump. He's got all the time in the world to work on his finances and those of his family and their businesses, and to focus on the financial security of his street fighting foot soldiers. Yesterday at the White House, contrary to Todd Blanche's assurance that the anti-weaponization fund is dead in the face of massive public opposition, the president said he still wants to take $1.8 billion from taxpayer funds to cut $1 million checks for the convicted criminals and cop beaters who stormed the Capitol on January 6, 2021, and other lucky political operators in the MAGA hemisphere. Working through Todd Blanche, Trump has given himself, his family, and his businesses an amazing and totally unprecedented super pardon that puts all of them above and out of the reach of the law, guaranteeing they will never, ever, forever, in all caps, be investigated, audited, sued, or prosecuted by any agency of the federal government for any violation of federal law, not just for tax fraud by the IRS, but for any civil, criminal, or administrative violation, whether insider trading, bribery, embezzlement, human trafficking, securities violations, antitrust conspiracies, what have you. Any violation of any law, whether presently known or unknown, in the words of our Attorney General. Well, today's bill does absolutely nothing to nullify this outrageous super pardon or to address our affordability crisis or the peasants who the president ignores, the rest of us, or to shut down the $1.8 billion slush fund for all of the king's men and soldiers. Today's bill would give $70 billion more to the Department of Homeland Security, an agency that already rivals the Department of Justice in corruption, incompetence, and authoritarianism. Last year, MAGA gave DHS $140 billion to deport the worst of the worst. Since then, DHS purchased not one, but 2 private jets for the secretary's use, including one with a bedroom, a full deluxe serving bar, and 4 flat-screen TVs. It's passed out hundreds of millions of dollars in no-bid contracts to MAGA donors, political insiders, and friends for everything from a lavish $220 million TV ad campaign for Pam Bondi, who they even had to get rid of, to ridiculously overpriced industrial warehouses for holding immigrants like livestock under ghastly conditions. Deporting the worst of the worst means that DHS agents are arresting kindergartner.
Yeah, I'd rather much live in a town full of immigrants than a town full of MAGAs. And the funny thing about the MAGAs is that they're immigrants themselves. They try to call themselves like the homeland and heritage. What a bunch of clowns these MAGA cult members are.
Daycare teachers and parents and dragging old men into the street in their underwear. Federal officials are abducting children from their beds in the middle of the night and using them as bait in order to arrest their frantic parents. They detained a 56-year-old nearly blind Rohingya legal refugee and without notifying his family or attorney, dropped him in a parking lot several miles away from his home in the freezing cold of a Buffalo winter, and he was found dead 5 days later. DHS is rounding up workers with lawful status working at small businesses as roofers, plumbers, farmhands, landscapers, and nurses. Agents are arresting refugees who went through stringent vetting and targeting immigrants who are following the law and showing up at their court hearings, ICE check-ins, and green card interviews. The whole world has watched in horror as DHS agents attack U.S. citizens, arrest them on false charges, and shot dead American citizens Renee Good, Alex Preddy, and Ruben Ray Martinez without any rational justification at all. Today, the majority, whose leader has already added $10 trillion to the national debt, wants to pour $70 billion more into ICE and CBP on top of the $140 billion they voted to give it last summer by slashing funds for Medicaid, children's health insurance, and rural hospitals. The Department of Homeland Security has a payroll today of 250,000 employees, a budget larger than that of 150 countries. It has over 80,000 sworn law enforcement officers, more than the number of sworn police officers in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Houston, Washington, D.C., Las Vegas, and Dallas combined. And yet, despite this massive cash infusion and a vast army of immigration officers turning our communities upside down, ICE and CBP are poised to receive another staggering jackpot payment today. To give these rogue agencies another $70 billion now, when they still have $100 billion in the bank from last year, would implicate all of us in the escalating corruption and shameful actions of this department. If you're going to go ahead and vote on this, you must pass several amendments. One of them to block permanently the $1.8 billion taxpayer-funded mega slush fund. Two, instead, establish the January 6th Law Enforcement Heroes Compensation Fund to provide compensation to the law enforcement officers who actually defended the U.S. Capitol and the Congress of the United States and the Vice President from a rampaging mob chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." We must pass an amendment to make sure that no money goes to anybody who is convicted of assaulting a police officer, and no money for any J6er who was convicted, pardoned, and then subsequently convicted of another crime. And there are 97 of them, including one guy who was pardoned one day by Donald Trump and several weeks later went and sexually molested a 12-year-old boy and a 12-year-old girl. None of those people should get any money, and it's up to this committee to make sure. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Wow. Jamie Raskin, as usual, bringing the smokes, the heat, the facts. Yeah, Jamie Raskin's a solid politician. True patriot. All right, let's go see what else is cracking. Let's see what we got in the queue here. There's some stuff that I hit the like button on that I want to watch later. We got some time to check it out. Let's see what's up with Moskowitz. Looks like Moskowitz grills Marco Rubio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here today, and also thank you for staying until the end so all members can ask questions. A lot of secretaries don't do that, so thank you.
All right, this is titled Jared Moskowitz presses Marco Rubio on definition of success in the Iran war.
For doing that.
Tell me that was an option.
Take it up with the chairman. I want to talk, you went through a list of successes for the administration, one of which was the Shield of the Americas. And I know I thank the administration for creating the Shield of Americas and sending Kristi Noem out of the country. I want to focus on Iran for a second. I think when we talk about success, right, success is Iran is no longer pursuing nuclear weapons. Success is that the uranium they have is gone. And it's fulfilling 30 or 40 years of U.S. policy, right? That's success. Do you agree with that?
I mean, ultimately, we did it for a reason. We don't want there to be a nuclear-armed Iran.
So, look, Iran can make whatever pledges they want. It's not worth the paper it's written on. But making sure the nuclear dust is out, making sure the facilities that they have underground are gone, that is success. And I assume you would agree that any deal that you think the president should sign or not sign has to address those core issues.
Absolutely. So the removal of highly enriched uranium is an irreversible step. You remove it or you destroy it, it's not there anymore. On enrichment, those are limits, but if you're not inspecting it, they can always violate it. And as long as they have the equipment and the know-how, they could always violate it in the future as well. So that would have to be, that's the one that would have to be monitored. But the enrichment, you could verify immediately because you either have it or you don't.
Yeah. And for me, I think you have to dismantle what's there and you have to get out what's there. I think that's the most critical piece because, Iran has survived multiple administrations. That's their whole goal. Their whole goal is just run out the clock. They've run out of clock previously. And so the idea that they'll pledge to do something in the future, I just don't think we can trust that. Once we pull away the military, once we move on to another topic, their pledge is kind of irrelevant. Getting what's there removed.
Yeah, I saw some of those. I saw some clips from that, from those, what's up, Waffle Jackson? Yeah, I saw some of those clips from that SPLC hearings. So I guess that King lady that was up there testifying, she's like the equivalent of what like RFK Jr. is to the Kennedy family. That's like what she is to the King family. They're just a bunch of traitors.
The most important thing.
But it's funny how like these MAGA cult members be like, the Democrats are KKK, this and that. such hogwash. If that was the case, then the KKK members would be flying rainbow flags next to their Confederate flags. Doesn't make any sense.
It's hard to convince, I think, the American people that it was worth the success. We talked a lot about critical minerals. I think the administration is doing a really good job on critical minerals. These rare minerals that we need for our military, for technology. But I don't think the American people understand how important it really is and what China is doing around the world. I mean, do you think the administration could do a slightly better job on educating the American people why this is so important and why they should care about that?
Yeah, I think we all need to do a better job. And I started talking about this issue when I was in the U.S. Senate, but frankly, it's not that sexy. You have to explain it to people because they have to understand that you can build the greatest car in the world. You can build the greatest plane in the world. You can build the greatest weapons system in the world, and you can build the greatest technology and infrastructure in the world. If it's missing one little thing, one chip, one element that you need to build it, if it's missing that, the whole thing doesn't work. You can't do it.
Yeah.
I think back to the magnets that are critical to the cars, and when the Chinese cut us off and the world off of those magnets that they were producing for cars, no, I wasn't even that conversant in the issue before it happened. So I think there are vulnerabilities like that. We've mapped out those vulnerabilities. I would agree. I think this is going to require a sustained public campaign to tell people when we talk about critical minerals, what we're actually talking about and why it's important.
And I think that's right. And I think people don't understand exactly the long game that China is playing. And I think it's important for U.S. foreign policy around the world. Mr. Secretary, the war in Gaza is all over my algorithm, all over my feed every day. But what's not on my algorithm or anyone else's algorithm here or the kids in college? There's nothing about the Ukraine-Russia war, about the hundreds of thousands of people that are dead in that war, or the 25,000 people that were killed.
Yeah. I had to send Wolfgang back to Jonestown because he was saying too many racist remarks. So I put him in a 5-minute timeout. So hopefully, if he wants to come back, he can comply. Be respectful.
Kidnapped.
But anyways, thanks for everyone that's hanging out and commenting. Appreciate you all.
The kids that were killed in that war, the terrible images that exist in a real war. Well, why is it, do you think, and is it the Chinese again, that, the algorithm is full of what's going on in the Middle East, but the Ukraine-Russia war, nothing. No images, no stories about the kids, no stories about the hundreds of thousands of people that are dead.
Yeah, I can't speak to the algorithms and what those systems are doing with regards to that. I can tell you that in addition to what you just mentioned, I do think that, this is my observation, this war has now lasted longer than the Second World War. I don't want to use the term stalemate, but clearly both sides are trading a kilometer for a kilometer, an incredible death rate. The Russians are losing 5,000 soldiers a week, which is a crazy number. And the Ukrainians are losing people too, but not nearly as many are at the rate. It's sort of a stalemated, stagnated fight that now I think threatens to escalate because we're seeing these deep strikes into Russia and deep strikes into
Cuba. And I don't want to cut you off, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I have only 9 seconds. Cuba, real quick. Thank you guys for indicting Raul Castro. I wish it would have happened years ago. The Cuban people deserve to be free. The time has come. I'd love just to give you a minute or to talk about what you see for that island in the coming years.
And just to be clear, we didn't indict Raul Castro. A grand jury in South Florida indicted him, and then
Americans.
Yeah, I know, but I know what you meant. I'm just saying I want to be clear. It was done through a grand jury. It wasn't. I've spoken to this a few moments ago as well. We'd like to see a better future in Cuba, one in which the Cuban people have something that looks like the way every other country in the Caribbean lives. The impediment there, unfortunately, is this military conglomerate that controls 70% of their GDP, and none of its revenue translates to the treasury, and therefore doesn't translate to the benefit of the Cuban people. So we're open to an arrangement that allows that process to begin. They're the ones that have been recalcitrant. In the meantime, we're prepared to provide humanitarian assistance to the people of Cuba, so long as it's distributed by non-governmental organizations that are trusted, like Samaritan's Purse, Caritas through the Catholic Church, the UN, others. But it can't be stolen and wind up in the Gaesa dollar stores. That can't happen.
Representative Zicki.
Thank you, Mr.
All right, so that was Marco Rubio. I saw something in the thumbnail right there where it was Sheldon Whitehouse. Let me see if I can find it. That looked pretty interesting. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna play one more before I tap out. Let's see this Sheldon Whitehouse video I saw. I wasn't able to click on it. It happened so fast. But I caught the glimpse of the title, so I think I'll be able to find it. Let me see. Sheldon. I'm surprised he's not coming up in the first of the search engines. Sheldon Whitehouse is getting ghosted over here. All right, let's see. All right. Hey, this just came out 34 minutes ago. Let's see what's up with this. Oh, hell yeah. All right, this is Sheldon Whitehouse right here from the Senate floor. I love Sheldon Whitehouse. This guy's a true patriot. All right, this will be the last politician we'll check out before I hit the hay. But thanks for everyone that's hanging out.
Quorum call?
We are, yes.
Then I ask unanimous consent that
Senator from Rhode Island is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is the Senate presently in quorum call?
We are, yes.
Then I ask unanimous consent that pending quorum call be vitiated.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. I come to the Senate floor every year around this time to remark upon an event in our pathway towards revolution. As we close in on the semi-quincentennial celebration of our Day of Independence, July 4th, 1776, I want to take this chamber back 4 more years than that, to June 9th, 1772, when the first blow was struck of armed conflict between the American colonies and Great Britain's fleet. The story begins with the arrival on Narragansett Bay of Her Majesty's officer, Lieutenant William Duddingston, the captain of a revenue cutter named the Gaspee. Lieutenant Duddingston's task was to police the commerce going in and out of Narragansett Bay, and he went about his task with bumptious, arrogant zeal, which included arrogant exchanges of correspondence with the colonial governor and Chief Justice, and unnecessary harassment and interference with colonial shipping on Narragansett Bay. Before we get to June and the events that I'm going to describe, I'll take a quick sidebar to one of his first exploits in February. It only got there in January. By February, Captain Duddingston of the Gaspee.
Yeah, during the Revolutionary War, there was a thing called Tory loyalists. They called them. There were people that still bowed down to the king. That's pretty much what MAGA cult members are today. They're Tory loyalists, the same ones from like the Revolutionary War that were traitors to the country.
Seized a ship called the Fortune, and he seized its cargo, and he had the ship and the cargo transferred up to Boston, where His Majesty's government sold the cargo and sold the ship and transferred the funds to the exchequer of Great Britain. What they had not appreciated was that one of the owners of the Fortune was a Rhode Islander named Nathaniel Greene, who had not beforehand been much involved in the committees of correspondence and the spirit of rebellion. But the seizure of his vessel put him into what he called a spirit of resentment that changed the course of his life. And as students of history will know, he went on to become the chief operating officer of the Revolutionary War, the top lieutenant to George Washington, the guy who made the supplies and the work, everything happen. And he was important in that role, but he constantly begged General Washington for a real command. And ultimately, General Washington relented, though it wounded him to lose the administrative capability of General Nathaniel Greene. And General Greene went down to run the Southern campaign of the Revolutionary War, whose motto, according to General Greene, was, we fight, we get beat, we rise up, and we fight again. And sure enough, he did. He fought over and over and over again, never winning a battle, but definitively winning the war in one of the first real examples of guerrilla-type conflict that the world had seen. They were used to stage-matched armies in colorful regalia, standing at a reasonable distance from each other and firing at each other with muskets and with cannons. The entire campaign in the South was a guerrilla campaign in which they fought, they got beat, they got away, they rose up, and they fought again. And the result was that General Cornwallis, commanding the British Army, wrote to his wife, "That damn Greene is more dangerous than Washington." He was a very significant participant in the victory that America achieved and the independence that we asserted on the 4th of July, 1776. Doesn't get the credit he deserves because he spent so much of the war facilitating the work of General Washington, but historians know what a remarkable job he did running that Southern campaign. And you can trace that all the way back to Lieutenant William Duddingston and the Gaspee seizing his ship, the Fortune, and lighting up that spirit of resentment. So scroll forward to June 9th of 1772. Lieutenant Duddingston still helming the Gaspee still harassing Rhode Islanders. A June day on Narragansett Bay is a beautiful thing to behold.
You'll never hear a MAGA politician talking about any of this because they don't know their history, and they're not patriotic like Sheldon Whitehouse.
In the sparkling light of that wonderful day, a little ship called the Hannah, bearing cargo, was sailing on its way up to Providence, which was one of the maritime centers of the colonies. And the Gaspee gave chase, seeking to arrest the Hannah and seize its cargo and send it off to Boston the way the Fortune had been sent. Only Captain Lindsay of the Hannah decided, to hell with that, I'm not going to surrender, I'm going to run for it. And he sailed away up Narragansett Bay with the Gaspee in chase. Along the Warwick shore, about halfway up Narragansett Bay, the Patuxent River comes into the bay. And as rivers do, it carries silt and dirt from the river washing through into the bay. And when the river slows down, when the water goes out into the larger bay, the silt and the sand fall to the bottom, and there is a little barrier along the bottom of the bay left by the river. Well, Captain Lindsay had sailed there quite a lot. And like any good captain, he had a pretty good idea of how deeply his vessel drew. And he sailed over the sandbar off of Namquid Point and continued on his merry way in the sparkling midday of June 9th, 1772. Behind him came the bigger, heavier, lumbering Gaspee, and it foundered and stuck on that sandbar. And the tide was falling.
What's up, Karenk? I'm right there with you. I'm waiting for the point of his whole story, but it's an interesting one so far.
So the Gaspee was going no place until the tide fell all the way to low tide and came all the way back up to the tide level at which it foundered, and then raised further enough to lift the vessel.
And just a heads up, this whole video is 18 minutes long, and we're about 8 minutes in, so there's 10 minutes of Sheldon Whitehouse. Let's see what he has to say. Yeah, 10 minutes left. So at some point, it'll get to the point.
Off where it was stuck. When the Hannah got to Providence, her captain told the story of what had taken place, described to the worthies on the Providence shore that the Gaspee, this dread vessel that had caused so much nuisance and costs to Rhode Islanders, was stuck. And that night, Rhode Islanders rowed down from Providence to the Gaspee at night in longboats with muffled oars. And as they approached the stuck Gaspee, Abraham Whipple, who was the local sheriff and was in the party, yelled out that he was here to arrest the captain of the vessel and arrest the vessel. And Duddingston was not about to put up with that, so he called his crew up to the deck, called them to arms, and a battle ensued between the longboat surrounding the Gaspee and the Gaspee itself. As the Rhode Islanders swarmed onto the Gaspee, and among the gunshots was one that struck Captain Duddingston. So, injured, he surrendered his crew, and the Rhode Islanders captured. His rank was lieutenant, his position was captain, Captain Duddingston, Lieutenant Duddingston, and they took him ashore with the crew and turned them all over to be held prisoner and detained. And then they went back out onto the bay, out to the stricken and stranded Gaspee, and they set her alight. When a ship burns, particularly a ship of that era, whose rope is covered with tar, whose rigging is canvas, whose structure is wood, with so many parts that are varnished and oiled, the combustion is rapid. And as the Gaspee burned, the fire reached the Gaspee's powder magazine. And when the fire reached the powder magazine, the gunpowder did what gunpowder does, and it blew the Gaspee to smithereens. It's now about 4 a.m. on June 10th, 1772. More than 4 years would go by before the 4th of July Declaration of Independence. And interestingly, more than a year and a half would go by until another event that is much more prominent, even though much less brave and significant, took place. And that is the so-called Boston Tea Party. Now, I have nothing against my friends from Massachusetts, but they got drunk. They went on board a civilian ship. They seized bales of tea, and they pushed the tea bales into Boston Harbor. Well, bully for them. But well more than a year earlier, Rhode Islanders had seized a vessel of Her Majesty's Navy had captured the crew and had blown the damn boat up. And I think that deserves a little credit. So I come here every year. When I go home this weekend, we'll be marching in the Gaspee Days parade that goes by Namquid Point, now called Gaspee Point, where an annual celebration takes place. And I want to make sure that all of the pages who are here know that when they hear about the Boston Tea Party, they should know to scroll back 18 months to a bolder, more violent, and more remarkable engagement by Rhode Island. The aftermath was immediate. King George was furious. He demanded that everyone involved be hanged. And he sent commissioners to come and root out who the miscreants were who participated in the raid on the Gaspee. And here's what's interesting. They were probably five.
Those are like the J6ers, the insurrectionists.
Boatloads of Rhode Islanders, enough to overwhelm the crew of the Gaspee. And enormous.
I love how you use the word miscreants.
Were offered for people to cooperate.
But actually, you know what? The J6ers, they're all treasonous people. They're all traitors.
And testify against their comrades, against all that pressure from the king, against all that inducement of reward. In Rhode Island, no one squealed. The commissioners went home empty-handed, the nooses hung empty, and that was the second conclusion. The blowing up of the vessel was one thing. The solidarity of not yielding to testify against their fellow colonists was the other. And so, I will read my poem about this event with apologies to the ride of Paul Revere. Listen, my colleagues, and you shall see how Rhode Islanders blew up the dread Gaspee. Great Britain was fearsome. She ruled the sea. But Rhode Islanders burned with the fire to be free. So when George sent his frigate to tax our coast and its arrogant captain was heard to boast that he'd soon have Rhode Island under his sway, well, a course was set for a fateful day. Narragansett Bay sparkled bright and blue, June 9th of 1772. The trading ship Hannah was making her way with cargo for Providence that fine day. King George's Gaspee pursued in chase, but the Hannah decided to give her a race. Away fled the Hannah with wind in her sails as the Gaspee's cannon fired from its rails. Evading the Gaspee's cannonballs, the Hannah sailed for the Namquid Shoals, fast and light. Hannah crossed the shallow, but when the Gaspee attempted to follow, she ran aground on the Warwick shore in a falling tide and could move no more. That night, dark longboats with muffled oars came slipping quietly down the shore to rid our bay of the dread Gaspee and show old King George that Rhode Island would be free. The battle was fierce off Warwick Neck. When the gun smoke cleared from the Gaspee's deck, Rhode Islanders had her as their prize, and her crew bound up in chains and ties. When the crew was ashore, Patuxent's Rangers assured they'd present no further danger. Back to the bay in the dark of the night went the Gaspee raiders to set her alight. The fire spread through the raiders' prize till a blast filled the Narragansett Bay skies. The fire had reached the Gaspee's magazines, and her gunpowder blew her to smithereens. Away sped the raiders into the dark, leaving in the embers freedom's spark. I want their names, King George demanded, and ordered the raiders be apprehended. But his call for hangings came to naught. His nooses hung empty. No charge was brought, because never a traitorous tale was told. Rhode Island stood steady and silent. The spark that was struck in the Gaspee raid lit a flame that still burns in our hearts today. And the lesson from then is a lesson now that every American still will avow. However majestic your powers be, heed our warning. Don't tread on me. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Oh shit. Sheldon Whitehouse coming through with the facts.
Senate.
I like that little history lesson right there. So Gatsby, is that where the Great Gatsby name came from? I'm gonna have to do some research. All right, you guys, I'm gonna hit the hay. Thanks for anyone that hung out. Catch you guys all later. So there's another hearing I want to check out. It's Mark Wayne Mullen. So tomorrow night I'm gonna do a watch party with the Mark Wayne Mullen hearings. He had a couple of them actually. Do a little watch party. But thanks for anyone that voted. Let's see here. So according to almost 900 votes, it looks like 74% of the people aren't satisfied with the way Trump's handling the Trumpstein files. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But the people have spoken, and thanks for letting yourselves be heard. All right, catch you guys all later. Have a good night. Later, everyone.